Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Marshall Steinbaum on the unlikely antitrust showdown. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell acknowledges Biden's election and then proceeds to roll Democratic leadership on COVID relief. Meanwhile, the Progressive Caucus weighs flexing its muscle in that very deal. California orders thousands of body bags in the anticipation of more COVID deaths. Meanwhile, the highly effective Moderna vaccine is on the brink of FDA approval. U.S. negotiating a deal with Pfizer for more doses. And a report, Florida appears to have manipulated death reporting in the lead up to the general election. Joe Biden announces, or I should say, reportedly to name Jennifer Granholm, Energy Secretary, Pete Buttigieg at Transportation. And after Uber spends millions of dollars on a successful assault on labor law in California, it raises its prices. And lastly, Arkansas anti-abortion law could be headed to the Supreme Court in the beginning of multiple tests of this new court's disposition towards a woman's right to choose. All this and more on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us on today's program. We have University of Utah Professor Marshall Steinbaum on a really interesting lawsuit that is taking place in a sport that I am not that familiar with. Emma Vigeland, who is our resident sports expert. Are you at a UFC?
No.
You don't do any mixed martial arts?
Look, I respect that people like it. It is, and I like football, so saying something's too violent for me, I think that means it's too violent, but
all right.
To each their own.
Fair enough. But it is the qualities of the sport aside, this is an extraordinary case that just got approval as a class action. And it is a case being brought by labor, essentially, against, but on antitrust principles. We will talk to Marshall about that. And also, he is a real authority on the implications of forgiving college loans. And we have many questions to ask him on that as well. This just breaking, there is, and we're going to be talking about the stimulus today. There's a lot of different angles to this story. But as of just moments ago, congressional negotiators, as reported by Politico, are on the brink of a coronavirus rescue package that will include a round of direct payments. And it's interesting to note how we got here, because as of yesterday, there were no direct payments that were going to be included in this. Now, of course, the first round, if you'll remember the CARES Act, Emma, was $1,200 direct payment to folks, I believe, under $75,000 income the prior year. And the payment they're talking about now is about half that. But as of yesterday, there was no payment in this deal.
Certainly.
If folks can recall, House has already passed multiple different packages that have languished. The Senate now, there is a gang of 4, although the numbers are not quite clear, but it's a bipartisan gang, if you will. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, it appears at the moment, but they've all been sort of moving in and out of that space. And that bill was or proposal they had ended up getting split into 2 parts. One was not direct relief, but relief in terms of extension on unemployment benefits, an augmentation to unemployment benefits, so an extra $300 per week provided by the feds on top of the extension of unemployment benefits, which most unemployment benefits come from the state. It also would have provided an extension on the eviction moratorium until Joe Biden gets into office, and there he can by executive action implement that again, and some rental assistance, as well as another tranche of PPP money. That is the Paycheck Protection Program. We'll get into all of this a little bit later in the program, but there was no direct payments.
It seems clear that the leveraging of their power, or the flexing of their muscle, as you put it, of the progressives led by Pramila Jayapal in the House, and then also Bernie Sanders joined by Republican Josh Hawley in the Senate, who were taking to the Senate floor demanding stimulus checks, seems to have worked. And it's a pretty quick turnaround, especially because McConnell's feeling the heat when it comes to Georgia. Well,
yes. And last night it was reported by Politico reporter. She's the co-congressional bureau chief of Politico, Heather Cagle. And she reported that the Progressive Caucus is taking a hard line and voting against any proposal that didn't include stimulus checks. That means direct payments. Pramila Jayapal raised the idea during a CPC call tonight. Again, this was reported last night. Members appeared to be receptive to the plan. The group is now whipping the idea, requesting members respond by noon tomorrow on 2 questions. If the Omni-COVID deal doesn't include direct payments, would they be willing to oppose the rule? Would they also be willing to oppose the bill? And so we don't know what came back from that, but I think just the idea that they were starting to whip this. Now, this, and as Cagle also writes, this comes after the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, instituted a bunch of rule changes. They changed their leadership up. Jayapal became the chair as opposed to the co-chair, and they only having 1 chair. Katie Porter became number 2, and Ilhan Omar became their whip. And the other thing they said, they had implemented a bunch of rules changes where it would become more member oriented. And one of the things that we had talked about with AOC months ago on this program was that the Progressive Caucus, and it's about 100, I'm not sure, I don't know the numbers.
It's a little over 100 members.
100 plus members strong. However, the only requirement to get into the Progressive Caucus is that, A, you want the branding of being a progressive, which
that's the chief
reason. You can deploy when you want to.
Yeah.
And then the other requirement is that you pay $4,000 in dues, which presumably is deployed for congressional races, and no requirements that you take certain votes, no requirements that you agree to certain positions. And that, of course, cuts into the efficacy of that group. And so now they seem to be basically saying, we are willing to begin to narrow the numbers that we have, but become more solid and more of a voting bloc and more powerful in that respect.
Learning from Republicans how to wield the power of your caucus. They do that extremely effectively. And the Congressional Progressive Caucus, by design, has been neutered, in my view, to be such a broad tent that it doesn't wield enough actual power. And Jayapal, who's a great great progressive is already diverting from that, which is encouraging.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it was built that way. I just think that for a long time there was within the Democratic Party not a strong, and by Democratic Party, I'm not talking about electeds. I'm talking about in terms of the people out there, the people who identify as Democrats or vote Democratic in elections. There was just simply not the critical mass of power on the left. Now, I'm not saying, I don't want to overstate things, but certainly the Democratic Party has gotten, and I think our society at large, half of it has gone a different direction, more a little bit less maybe, but progressives have become more progressive. And over the past 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years or so. And so I think we're starting to see a reflection of that. There's more demands on it. And certainly and I think part of it is also, frankly, is the freshman class that came in 2018 with people like Katie Porter, with people like AOC and the Squad. And we see that their numbers have increased now. And
you can see what they're doing here as kind of a mirror effect of what Republicans did with the House Freedom Caucus.
Yes.
Which was, Tea Party members.
Well, the Freedom Caucus, we never knew the numbers. It was secret. And so we don't know if it was 20 or 30, and they wielded a tremendous amount of power. Now, of course, the rest of the party was also fairly like-minded and was certainly trending in that direction. But that is the model. And so that's where we are as of now. However, here is the irony is here is Joe Manchin yesterday asked to respond to Bernie Sanders' criticism of the Democrats self-negotiating because and Bernie Sanders isn't the only one saying this. The former chief of staff for Harry Reid was on Twitter. Adam Gentleson, I think is his name.
And whatever your issues with Harry Reid, he fought Republicans way more than, I don't know,
Chuck Schumer.
Current leadership.
Yes, yeah. I think so. And without a doubt. And to the extent that he was not successful, he was undercut by Joe Biden, frankly, in negotiations. We don't need to cover that ground at the moment. But Gentleson had this to say on Twitter last night. McConnell is upbeat, has reports that Mitch McConnell is very upbeat about the negotiations as of last night because he is getting what he wants, the least amount of aid injected into the economy while still passing a bill before the Georgia runoffs. Democrats are upbeat because they love doing deals even when that deal is giving McConnell everything he wants. Let's remember, folks, where this has gone. Back in April, late March, early April, the Republicans wanted another tranche of the PPP. This is the Paycheck Protection Program, sends money ostensibly to small businesses and says, here is a loan. If you spend this loan within 8 weeks and you do it exclusively on your labor costs and rent, then we will forgive that loan. It becomes a grant. Now, in the second tranche, Republicans, I think, wanted approximately $250 billion. Democrats came back and said $400 billion. It's unclear why there needed to be more money. There did need to be reforms in terms of who had access to this money, because if you had a
Shake Shack's getting access to it, small business.
The small business. But the idea is that if you had a pre-existing relationship with a bank, which most small businesses, some do, but most don't. Because they're too small. If you have a good relationship with a bank, you're on the top of their list to have their forms go through. And a lot of people, and particularly women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses, did not have those relationships. That type of reform was important because there was really no system to set this whole thing up. The extra money was unclear, but Nancy Pelosi received a lot of criticism at the time, not the least of which from Andrew Cuomo. You need to get state and city funding in that because you have the leverage now. The Republicans want more paycheck protection. You have the leverage. Nancy Pelosi was highly dismissive of those people, of anyone who was critical of her not using that leverage to get city and state. She vowed in April, we will get it. Believe me, we're going to get it. Here we are 12 months later, still don't get it. We're not going to get it in this deal no matter what happens because it's tied into that corporate responsibility, the corporate liability protections.
McConnell's
pet project and the also the Chamber of Commerce's pet project. And so we have these two separate bills now. One has the so-called controversial stuff. And now we have money left over from paycheck protection, money left over from the Treasury backing some of the corporate loans that went out. That money's being shifted over. So
over $500 billion, which covers more than half of this section of the bill.
Indeed. And so we're not talking a lot of new money. So it's not that expensive to the country, if that is what you're concerned about at this point, which you should not be.
Republicans pretend to be concerned about.
Indeed. And so here we are where there is a charge that Democrats have been negotiating against themselves. When Mitch McConnell, if he wants to retain the Senate, this is one of the things he needs. He needs Perdue and Loeffler to say, we delivered on this anemic but existing relief bill. Here is Joe Manchin on with Poppy Harlow on CNN, being asked to respond to Bernie Sanders' criticism of the Democrats self-negotiating.
Senator Bernie Sanders and Republican Senator Josh Hawley are insisting on direct stimulus checks to folks. This does not have that. And this is what Sanders told Politico last night, quote, what kind of a negotiation is it when you go from $3.4 trillion, that's what passed the House, to $188 billion in new money? That is not a negotiation. That's a collapse. What's your response to him?
Well, I hear Bernie loud and clear, and I understand where Bernie's coming from. I want to re-emphasize this is an emergency package. If you're losing basically your unemployment assistance because it's not your fault that you've lost your job because businesses have closed and they're closing more, you need a lifeline. That's what this is. If you're losing your food assistance, you don't qualify for food stamps. But basically, you're in a hunger line you've never been in before. If you're losing your rent assistance or eviction notices, they're going to throw you out at the end of the year. Bernie, all I'm asking for is a lifeline for those people that are desperate right now. Joe Biden comes in as our president June 20th. He'll put another package forward. That package will be all-inclusive. That'll look at everything it takes in order to get our economy back up and roaring again. So let's look at this as an emergency lifeline through the first quarter till April 1. That's how we should be doing it.
Pretty sure that's how Bernie Sanders views it too, which is why he is showing and discussing the urgency of having it be more robust. And there's no guarantee that they're going to have, as you would say, a second bite at the apple in 2021, because you're giving Republicans what they want here, which is the ability for Loeffler and Perdue to say that they achieved something, and then that could jeopardize the Senate. So you have to be as strong in your negotiations and as demanding for relief for those people that you're talking about, Joe Manchin, as possible.
And shortly, hours after he gave that, he made that statement on CNN, there appears to be now a bigger push to have at least a $600 direct payment to people. Now, I mean, that's it. It shows, frankly, I mean, the efficacy of what Sanders was doing in conjunction, I guess, with Hawley in going in front of the Senate and demanding $1,200. Now,
it embarrassed them. I mean, it was a Republican and a prominent Democrat who embarrassed the rest of the senators by saying there needs to be stimulus checks, and what do you know? And then Pramila Jayapal in the House flexing her muscle.
Indeed. And so that's where we're at. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to University of Utah Professor Marshall Steinbaum on the very surprising UFC labor antitrust showdown and also college loans. We'll be back in just a moment. In the meantime, folks, This is pretty exciting stuff.
We have props.
We have props today. I am modeling the Posit T-shirt. As you can see, there's a Majority Report logo right here, right on the sleeve, and the Posit T-shirt. And then there's just like half of my face with
Sam
really
loves wearing images or clothing with images of his face on it. You talk about it all the time. You only want to wear merch with your face on it.
Absolutely. In fact, but only the best features of my face, which is basically just my forehead.
Well, you got good hair, so there you go.
My
it's
forehead and my hair.
featured
There it
too.
goes. And the glasses, the top of the glasses. And Emma's got a Left is Best T-shirt.
I don't share Sam's obsession with wearing clothing that has his face on it, so I'm going to be donning the Left.
And that's
is Best
the back,
T-shirt.
right? That's the back. We're looking
No, it's the front.
Oh, is that the front?
But it does have Majority
there it is.
Report
Okay.
on the sleeve, which is cool too. Nice
Is
feature.
your Left is Best?
And good. You know those kinds of T-shirts that you get that they're like chalky when you get them, and they're the cotton's not like this is very soft but sturdy cotton.
Well, and not only that, you'll notice it is made in the USA and it is printed by a union print shop. So all of it is union
Right.
printed. And Brendan, put up. Let's do this. Let's do it. I don't care. I know. Let's show the hat. Show the hat. This beanie. We're going to get this baby is going to be up there very short.
Second.
And this is pretty exciting. And I think we're going to have it. We're going to have it in black and gray or just gray. I'm not sure. But here's what it's going to look like. Brendan's got it. He's going to put it up. Folks, don't forget, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. And you support the free show, and then you get the fun half. And there it is. There's the hat. Oh, my gosh. I like that. That may actually be, I'm a little hesitant to wear Majority Report branded stuff.
That's why I was joking about it.
As a kid, I was visiting New York City and ran into what was his name now? I can't believe Chris Elliott.
Okay.
And this is back in the 80s when he was doing characters on David Letterman show. Do you even know who Chris Elliott is?
I don't know who it is.
This is so cool.
I wanted to just, let us move.
Do you watch Schitt's Creek?
My parents do.
Okay.
My mom does.
All right.
But I've seen parts of it.
Okay.
That guy Dan Levy's funny. Son of Eugene Levy.
Anyways, so Chris Elliott was walking down the street, and I'm with my buddies. We're in college with John Benjamin, actually, and Chris Elliott comes walking by. First, we see this guy. He's like wearing all David Letterman logo stuff, armbands, hat, jacket, shirt. And we walk in and go, holy crap, that's Chris Elliott. And we're like, Chris Elliott. He's like, hey, guys. I mean, he was just completely advertising. It was so funny.
That's amazing.
But I can't get into that. So check it out. Go to our merch shop.majorityreportradio.com. Also, you can join the show, join the majorityReport.com, and also subscribe on YouTube. Okay, like to welcome back to the program Marshall Steinbaum from the University of Utah. Marshall, welcome back to the program. And we got you sideways. We're going to need you to shift your phone again if you could. There you go. Perfect.
Is that better?
Yeah,
all right.
Great. So, Marshall, let's tell us, I mean, first off, for people who don't know UFC fighting, what can you tell us about this? Like, what is this?
Well, I'm hardly the person to go to for commentary on the actual sport itself. It is basically, from a sort of labor standpoint, Uber for mixed martial arts, for individual bouts between competitors, and that's what underlies this antitrust case and the practices that lead to such low pay to the fighters themselves. So just to be
clear, so that people know, it's mixed martial arts, which is basically anything from, I guess, like from karate and Thai kickboxing, and they fight. It's like boxing, but they use their legs and whatnot. And this is UFC is the biggest league, I think, that is out there in terms of what they call MMA.
And this gained prominence right when all Hickman on the contractors is am I remembering that correctly?
I'm sorry, I missed Emma what you just said.
This got into, I think, more of the national consciousness when I saw John Oliver do the big segment on the exploitation of these UFC fighters.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, Sam, when you say that they're the biggest MMA promoter, I think that's true by a very long shot. The facts underlying this antitrust case essentially pertain to the decades in which it wrapped up the entire market. So there used to be many promoters, and the fighters had some power vis-a-vis the promoters, because if they didn't like the deal that was put together by any one promoter, they could go to another one, and the different promoters were essentially competing to put on the best fights for the audience that was there for them. The UFC has wrapped up that market in part by constraining the fighters to exclusive contracts, outright mergers with some of the competition, so that, I think the last one was in something like 2012 or 2011 or 2012. That means that it now has over 90% of the market share, and I think essentially exclusive contracts with all of the major, the highest profile fighters. So basically all of the. That's why I say it's somewhat similar to Uber, and broadly speaking to the tech platforms altogether, because they have exerted power over the fighters exactly by monopolizing the market to consumers. So essentially, the fans of the sport are fully within the UFC tent, because they're the ones with all the exclusive contracts, and they can the UFC can turn around and essentially in any negotiation with any one fighter say, it's basically my way or the highway. You have nowhere else to go, so you have to agree to my terms. And these sort of exclusion on both sides of the platform is mutually reinforcing.
Okay, and I want to get into this. This is what is known as a monopsony, and I want you to because I think people need to understand this term, because I have a feeling that people are going to hear it a lot more in this era, because I think there is been a concerted effort and a building push for really now 5 or 6 years. It seems to me to push for a change in the way that we interpret our antitrust laws in this country, really a return to the way it was before Ronald Reagan changed those ideas. And we should also say that you obviously have a child with a croup cough in the background there that we should.
That's a canine. That's a canine, not a human being.
No, and, I know. It's just far more sympathetic if people think it's your kid.
Well, he's been bought off with peanut butter, so hopefully that will.
Well done. Well done. All right. So, but tell us about this concept of monopsony, because we don't just see it. You mentioned we see it in the context of Uber. Uber has been able largely to push out a lot of its competitors in their space. You see it in the context of we have this in the context of chicken processing, across the country. We've seen this in the context of sometimes of Walmart has done this. Tell us what this idea of monopsony is, because I think people know what a monopoly is, but a monopsony is sort of the inverse on some level.
Yeah, so monopsony formally refers to one buyer in a market as opposed to one seller in the case of monopoly. And what you're all talking about is monopsony as applied to the context of labor, where people sell their labor to make their living. And if their employer has power over them, then they have to sell it on terms that are advantageous to the employer and not to the worker. I think one reason why this term has, there's some misunderstanding of it in the popular imagination is because it's interpreted over literally in some cases to mean literally only one employer in a labor market. And I think that market power on the part of employers is a much more widespread phenomenon than that. I mean, to some extent, this gets into the weeds of market definition in antitrust. So, for example, applied to the UFC context, they have a more than 90% share of mixed martial arts professional events broadcast on pay-per-view or something like that. And they, in defending themselves from this case, would say something like, oh, well, the fighters can go box or something else, like do a different sport. So we're not a monopsony because we have less than a 90% market share, way less if you incorporate these other things. We can get into that. I would say to refer to the sort of sea change in thinking that you're referring to in antitrust since the Reagan era, Walmart is a great example. So Walmart, is a totally dominant retailer that basically spread across the country and has representation in pretty much every market and sells tons of stuff at its stores. Antitrust people operating under the old regime would consider Walmart to be a antitrust success or a competition success because they have a dominant market share, but the claim would be, oh, but they're so much more efficient. The reason why they're so dominant is because they provide so many more goods at such a lower price that all the consumers shop there, and that consolidation represents pro-competitive consolidation, that is consumer benefiting consolidation across the retail landscape. And so if you bring labor market issues into play and monopsony, then you look at Walmart and you see terrible labor standards, you see exploited workers, low wages, unpredictable scheduling, all sorts of pathologies of the retail labor market that we're well aware of and interpreted through the lens of market power and competition or antitrust. That looks not like a competitive success, but like a competitive failure. And that's the way I certainly would look at it, taking the labor approach that I do. And I think that there's analogies to be had to the sort of reinterpretation of the Walmart experience, way beyond, it's a big company that has a lot of influence on the way that the labor market works, but even way beyond that, to all sorts of other sectors, such as professional sports in this case.
Right. And we should also, reiterate, I just want to make this clear to everybody because, we're going to pound this over the next year or two, I believe, is, prior to Ronald Reagan era, prior to Robert Bork, yes, that Bork, coming out with this idea that the only thing we should be worried about in terms of antitrust is the cost to the consumer. Prior to that, the concern about antitrust was not exclusively the cost to consumer. It was the ability of labor to get a fair deal and to be on somewhat fair grounds with the buyer of their labor, but also political power and also the ability of other firms to compete so that we have a robust economy that doesn't put all our eggs in one basket. And it really has more to do with being a citizen and a society, rather than just, the cheapest goods possible. And, we end up paying for these goods in other ways that basically these become externalities that get offloaded onto society in other ways. And so we end up supporting a lot of Walmart workers with social services that in a healthier economy, we wouldn't have to do because their wages would rise and they'd have more benefits. So getting back to the UFC, So how often do we see semi-freelancers, right? I mean, these UFC guys are they independent contractors or are they?
Yeah. That's one of the crucial aspects of this case is that they're independent contractors, unlike the major leagues or professional leagues of other professional sports where you have unionized, where the athletes are unionized and there's collective bargaining under the aegis of the National Labor Relations Act. For the most part, that's not 100% the case in professional sports, but that is basically the framework that has been adopted into professional sports at the highest level. UFC is more like boxing in the sense that the athletes are independent contractors. They're not part of a team, and each professional event is sort of separately promoted or put together, promoted by a promoter that contracts in theory on a one-off basis. I mean, if you're going to go the independent contractor route, the idea is that preserves more autonomy for the contractor, and so if you would imagine that, then there's not like a contract that lasts for like 20 bouts in UFC, but that is in fact what exists. So they're independent contractors. They're not represented by a union. There's not a contract negotiation such as you hear about in the NBA, for example, where the main subject of the bargaining between the players and the league is what share of the revenue goes to the athletes. That's what they bargain over. In the UFC, there's no such collective representation like that. So the players are negotiating on a bout by bout basis. But one of the ways in which they're exploited is that they're locked into long-term contracts, and those contracts can essentially be unilaterally extended. It seems like. I mean, so there's some evidence of that from the evidence that's come forward in this case. So it's sort of the worst of both worlds for the workers. That is, they in theory, they're more autonomous, but in reality, they're not more autonomous. They just lack power. And I think that also, to get back to the Uber example and some of what you were just saying about the larger sort of societal implications of Walmart, the companies that use independent contractors, be they the UFC or Uber, will say, workers have lower status, or vis-a-vis, they have lower labor standards in respect to these contracts because they're independent, but instead, they gain autonomy, they gain flexibility. This was a very popular talking point for the gig platforms in the context of Prop 22 in California. And it is, we'll certainly be hearing more of that. That is, independent contractors give workers more flexibility, even if they lack employment status and the minimum wage and so on. And what I would say this case shows very clearly, and is also clearly shown in the actual reality of Uber and other gig economy platforms, as opposed to their propaganda, is that actually under the independent contractor business model, workers lack autonomy, they lack flexibility, they can still be forced to do things, in fact, probably more so, because they lack this collective bargaining framework that's available to athletes in other major sports. They do not in any sense have the flexibility that the companies claim, and they have low pay. And I would say a broader sort of truth of how labor markets work is that worker power is mutually reinforcing. So if giving workers more autonomy increases their bargaining power, which means they are in a position to claim higher pay. So the big contradiction is, are labor standards and autonomy or flexibility substitutes or complements? My argument would be, as a labor economist, they're complements. More autonomy for workers, and that also goes for small businesses dealing with platforms or dominant buyers like Walmart. The more autonomy they have, the more ability to take their business elsewhere and work with other buyers or other employers, the better position they're in to bargain with a given employer whose conduct is in question.
All right, let me just to clarify, there's two dynamics, right? There's one on the buyer side, that being the employer at this point, the UFC, and there's one on the seller side. And what they're doing is they're saying that ostensibly we're part of our compensation to these sellers of their labor is that we're giving them more flexibility. That's why we're not giving them benefits. That's why we're not paying into their Social Security, because they have flexibility and they really want that flexibility. However, that's the dynamic ostensibly with but because of their business practices, they have basically offered them a Pyrrhic compensation, if you will. You have the flexibility to go anywhere you want. It just so happens, though, that our business practices have eaten up and have swallowed every other opportunity.
Right. It's
you
like
could
the
possibly.
NFL saying, yeah, you could go play in the XFL if you wanted to. We have competition. But at least the NFL provides healthcare for them. I mean, that's what's unbelievable about this UFC story, is that it's one of the most violent sports possible, and they did not provide health care when they were bleeding from the mouth or whatever.
Well, and the point is, they don't have
unionized,
to, because their business practices have been so monopolistic, we would say, right? I mean, it's not really, and like you say, it's not a function of exactly how much market a share you have, although that's a piece of evidence. There is a broader sense of like how much a choice does the seller of labor at this point have in a market that has been so thoroughly, essentially cornered by one entity.
And do you think, just a quick add-on, do you think that this pushed these UFC fighters into even more dangerous physical activity because there was such little competition and they were kind of hanging by a thread in terms of their employment, because UFC could basically get rid of them whenever they wanted and there would be new people lined up because they had no rights?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those things play into the exercise of monopsony power. I mean, a friend of mine made the pretty amazing point that you're essentially just alluding to about this case, that, by contrast, the NFL or professional boxing looks like, a well-structured pro-worker type of arrangement compared to the way that these people operate. And I think one of the fact that they have so much power in this sphere exactly pertains to their ability to essentially make the work as exploitative as possible, in this case as violent as possible. So, the business model very much is, we will put on a spectacle of extreme violence, worker health be damned, basically, because we're not on the hook for it. All of the costs that go along with sport that is as violent as it is are borne by the workers. So again, this is similar to Uber, where it's in Uber's interest to have all the drivers drive around as quickly as possible in an unsafe way as possible, because Uber's not on the hook for the depreciation to the cars, for auto accidents, for damage to third parties or whatever. It's like they get all of the benefits of controlling this labor force without any of the costs of liability for anything that could possibly go wrong. So of course they want it to be as unsafe as possible. Of course, the UFC
assaulted. Say a driver's assaulted by does Uber have any liability when it comes to their drivers? I'm assuming the answer is no.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not exactly the expert in a position to comment on that, but generally that question of liability to workers in the performance of their jobs is one of the things that attaches to employment status, is my understanding. So the fact that they're independent contractors means that things that they do on the job are their own problem and not the problem of the boss, because the boss is not legally the same thing as them.
And so that monopsony power also incentivizes the drivers or the fighters to be more reckless, because they need to succeed within this closed environment that their employers have created.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a bike messenger myself, thankfully not a lengthy part of my career, but it's extremely unsafe. And we were independent contractors, but, basically the dispatchers had the incentive to have us bike as quickly as possible in as unsafe way as possible. So, bike messengers aren't the most popular people on city streets with pedestrians, certainly. But the reason why is the same reason why Uber drivers have to drive in such an unsafe manner, which is, the kind of institutional setup is such that if you don't do that, then you don't get paid enough to make it, make it actually make a living for you.
Right. So, okay. And so to get back to the specifics of the case, a court just found, and this is important, and I imagine this is going to have, well, you tell us, but implications both in the context of potentially labor law, in the context of antitrust, and to a certain extent in tort law, because these all of these independent contractors are allowed to now represent themselves as a class, which of course makes it a viable case, because if each person had to do it individually, the amount of work and investment that legal representation would be involved here, no individual lawyer would take this case, because they're going up against a multi-billion-dollar business that will be able to sort of just wear them out. But if I'm representing all of these workers, then my investment, money and time as an attorney, that representation works. That's why class actions are so powerful, and why we see so much work on trying to limit who can actually become a class by a lot of these judges. So what are the implications so far of this case that they've been able to bring it this far on labor law and on antitrust? I mean, what is that? Where does this lead?
Yeah, I mean, I do hope it leads to a flourishing of multiple cases. I mean, this case was filed, I think, in 2014, and this ruling as to class certification, allowing it to move forward as a class action, came in 2020. So that's 6 years, and we haven't even gotten to a trial yet, let alone appeals and all the other things that are associated with a lengthy and high stakes antitrust proceeding like this. I do hope, so the idea that independent contractors as workers can establish or can meet the standard for class certification is indeed a major development that should aid similar cases from going forward. On the other hand, as you say, there have been efforts to limit class actions, including the, I think, 2019, maybe 2018 Supreme Court case Epic Systems, which basically allowed class action waivers in employment contracts, notwithstanding the National Labor Relations Act. So lots of companies basically put, sort of pro forma class action waivers as part of their standard employment materials, so that, per the finding in that case, binds their workers to forswear a class, any kind of legal proceeding, but in particular a class action one, which is the kind that threatens them for most workers, as you're saying. So that really raises up the point of public enforcement. So public agencies that have the power to enforce competition laws are not bound by mandatory arbitration or class action waivers. And the other thing is that, the stakes are very high in this case, because in the past the fighters have been paid, pennies in comparison to what the company is earning. So the whole premise of the damages is that the share of revenues that's going to the fighters is way, way lower than it would be if there were free competition for their services. That's very true in this context, and means that it's viable to bring an ambitious antitrust claim like this. That's harder for workers in more sort of pedestrian occupations, where the gap between what the revenues that the boss is making off of them and what they get paid is not the gaping chasm that it is in this context. I mean, in general, it is high. That's sort of the premise of employer power in labor markets. And I think the viewers of the show have probably seen some version of the Economic Policy Institute's chart of the widening gap between output per worker and pay. So all of that, it's true, but for most workers, it's hard to sustain a specific antitrust proceeding on that basis, given how hard it is. I mean, for all of the Borkist reasons we've been talking about, antitrust jurisprudence has become way, way harder for plaintiffs. So that's why it's 6 years between, until the finding of class certification. And even that is a major victory. That's why there needs to be both public enforcement as well as, in my view, legislative amendments. And, there's some chance of that. There's a monopolization bill that's been introduced in the New York State legislature that I think is promising. And I think there may be similar efforts in other states, especially in light of Prop 22. In California, I think a lot of labor organizations and workers are afraid of this diminution of their status sort of marching across the states, including on the federal level. They're absolutely right to be very afraid of that. One of the ways to defend against that is to have very strong antitrust enforcement against what's called vertical restraints in the antitrust context, namely the ways in which dominant employer of independent contractors exercises its power. If that's made illegal through the antitrust laws or through public enforcement, then the attraction of the independent contractor business model is way reduced, because it exposes you to exactly that liability. And so, I think there's, you started by saying we're going to be hearing more and more about monopsony. I hope that's specifically true in the context of the sort of defense against the gigification or platformization of the labor market across all sorts of occupations.
So this is just going to be, that's what's interesting about this story, is that it has got the antitrust element to it. It's also got the labor element to it. And that's not always the case. We can see antitrust maybe in terms of, let's say, we're seeing it obviously in terms of Facebook, in terms of Google, in terms of Amazon, different variants in terms of what they're doing to the market that inhibits competition for other people. There's also issues, of course, in terms of, what happens when someone's deplatformed and then there's only one social platform. But we also see it in the context of other businesses outside of, we see it in airlines. And I mean, we see where antitrust is going to be across the board. Where else would you guess? I mean, is the gig economy stuff, is this, when we look at this case and people start to follow it more, the gig economy is really going to be implicated by this because of that dynamic of independent contractors. And we should say, and just be clear, there are two competing forces here, because 22, which just passed in California, essentially they are looking to roll out this, which is a full-on assault on our labor laws, essentially across the entire country, where you as a worker will lose protections and will lose benefits because of this law, because it really is a sort of a backdoor to undercutting our labor laws, right? So this case has the opportunity to sort of bring up a new theory on how you inhibit this push by these gig economy entities.
Yeah, and that's what's, I would say, most important to me as a public message coming out of this. I mean, these are, extremely exploited workers in a crappy situation who deserve relief. I think the relevance of that situation to the larger labor market that the rest of us make our living in is exactly what you're saying. And in pushing this reduction in labor standards across the board that will hit all manner of occupations, the companies will say, as I was earlier alluding to, oh, but the workers gain flexibility. So it's actually, sort of a trade-off for them, and the workers like that trade-off. I think this antitrust as a defense against that highlights exactly the extent to which that isn't true. That you do not gain flexibility, you lose flexibility because as an independent contractor, you can be forced to do what it is the platform wants to work, even though it's not in your interest to, for the customers that's in the interest of the platform for you to work for, not in your own interest. And I think, and it's important to open up this other front. So, the sort of fight about the gig economy to date has almost solely been about employment status, employment classification. I think a lot of gig economy workers, look at that kind of policy fight and think, well, being an employee is not all that great shakes. I mean, look at the way that Walmart workers are employees. They're totally screwed. So, like, why should I put my livelihood on the line to fight for something that it doesn't seem like is all that valuable to me? Well, I think the antitrust case sort of opens up another front, a front that is in fact, in some ways, a more pro-worker one, where it's fighting exactly the lack of autonomy, the subjugation of individual workers under the independent contractor business model. And my ideal state would be if the platforms face severe antitrust liability as a result of using this independent contractor business model, then that their incentives change. Then they want to be made into, the workers to be made into employees, because that's how they get out of that liability. Like, thus far, they've been able to skate on that side of things. So they're happy to just say, independent contractor, not, because they don't face any harm from doing that. If independent contractor entails vertical restraints liability on the part of the platforms, then that decision on their part becomes a lot more complicated, and hopefully, screwing over workers becomes less attractive to them.
It's fascinating, the many different angles that we can take and that are necessary, I think, to constrain these companies that increasingly have so many resources in which they can change statutes and whatnot. So this is
yeah. I mean, they have basically an infinity budget. When I looked at what happened to Uber and Lyft share price in response to the passage of Prop 22, and you think, that is, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of workers having their livelihood be reduced to benefit the portfolio valuation of the Saudi royal family. Like, that just right there on its face is the hollowing out and destruction of the American middle class to benefit, the world's richest and most powerful and despotic people. And I think, we need to bring to bear new tactics and strategies to do something about that, because, the American people are being sold out, frankly, by our existing political leadership.
I mean, there you go. I mean, you just you're taking the money from the employees or the contractors, as it were, and just putting it right into the share price, and it goes to the perfect upward distribution of money. Marshall Steinbaum, next time we're going to talk more about college loan forgiveness. Maybe we can wait. Nothing's going to happen on that, at least until January 20th, and then hopefully maybe something will. But we have time to talk about it. But thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Great talking to you.
Thanks so much.
All right, quick break. Be right back. Well, yesterday was a big day, Emma, because that's the day that Mitch McConnell conceded that Joe Biden had won the presidency. And
6 weeks after he actually did?
Yeah. I mean, better late than never.
Sure.
And, of course, the right is up in arms. And I don't want to give... I think, like, even noting that it took him 6 weeks, it almost gives him too much credit. That
was not my intention.
Well, yes, I know, but they are concerned, and Mitch McConnell warned members of his caucus that this is inhibiting Georgia. And again, this is all part of a whole, right? I mean, if Georgia, of course, is paramount to Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell will be able to do nothing. He will be able to obstruct in terms of legislation, but not necessarily when it comes to spending money. He will have to fight every piece of legislation. If the Democrats have 50 senators, have a tie-break vote coming from Kamala Harris. And
especially because the 2022 map could be bad for Republicans if Democrats,
if Democrats are able to provide some material benefit to people and show that they can legislate. And of course, it also means the beginning of attempting to push back on Mitch McConnell's packing of these courts. If McConnell has a majority of the Senate, then he will run the exact same plan he did against Obama when it comes to judicial appointees. And the Democrats won't be able to do anything about it. So Georgia is hugely important. And, the question is, and this is, I will concede this is a difficult calculation to make. How much do you push in terms of what needs to be in this relief bill and potentially keep it from happening when you know that Mitch McConnell desperately wants something to pass, anything to pass, really. And
which means you up what you ask for.
And the question is I guess, how far up do you make that ask? And
luckily, it seems like stimulus checks will be included. But Jeff Stein of the Washington Post is also reporting that means that the timeline for extended unemployment will be shortened. That's the trade-off.
So there's no extra money here in that bill. What we're looking at is simply a redistribution from people who are out of work. And then, of course, that puts the pressure on if the Democrats don't take the Senate by winning these 2 seats in Georgia, when we come back for that second bite at the apple to get extended unemployment benefits, because, look, we're going to be in this with COVID regardless of vaccinations, into the spring at a minimum.
I was going to say summer.
At a minimum. That means that Joe Biden and the Democrats have to go back to Mitch McConnell and say, please, please, please. And they don't have the leverage at that point. So again, there's few opportunities for Democrats to have leverage. And if you don't use it now, you're going to lose it. And
use it or lose it.
Indeed. So, but we will see. I suspect that we're going to have a deal by certainly by the end of the week, maybe before then. They're also, let's face it, the senators want to go on vacation.
Yeah,
we all do. But the senators really like to go on
Bernie
vacation.
Bernie Sanders is like, we'll stay here through Christmas if we have to. They're like, oh, geez, no,
all right, fine. Here's another
guy.
$300. I mean, let's hope that is effective. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow. If you are anywhere on the Northeast, batten down the hatches. Got a big storm heading in our direction, but we'll be here one way or the other.
Maybe.
Right here. And don't forget, if you miss any part of this show, you can check it out on the Peacock app on the Choice channel, 5 p.m., 10 p.m. Check it out. See you tomorrow. And for those of you sticking around, we have much more show for you. We will take your phone
content.
phone calls, IMs, an update on who the latest person that Jimmy Dore's got into a fight with.
Oh my God.
Real movement builder. But we will get to that in a moment. Just a reminder, this program relies on your support. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you do, you support, you not only support the free show, but you get extra content just about every single day. Don't forget, Nomiki's show. You can find that at youtube.com and Nomiki, the Nomiki show. I'm not sure who's on today, but check it out. Also, the Antifada is doing a Twitch stream tonight at 7 p.m. So you can go to twitch.tv/the Antifada. It's all soft launch. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is going to be between soft launch and hard launch.
Me neither.
But
you'll know when the time comes.
Well, we had a soft launch for this show. And even then, that was 10 years ago.
Right.
Couldn't really tell you what the difference was. It was just my way of basically saying I'm a little more sloppy. Maybe that's what
it's like. I want to continue putting out content without really making sure everything's done correctly in the back end. So I think that's what soft launch means. That's what we're doing in Left Reckoning too. Which, by the way, David Griscom did a Griscom stream last night. So check that out at Left Reckoning's YouTube channel.
There you go. Do you know what the name of that is? At youtube.com, The Left Reckoning?
I don't think we have. I think you need to get a certain level of YouTube clout before you can specify your URL. So you have to search it.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, speaking of YouTube clout, folks.
We got to get there.
I don't even think we added any subscribers. Did we? How did we do yesterday in terms of subscribers?
We did great. Just say that.
We did great yesterday.
Yeah.
But I want to do even better today. So, subscribe. Oh, we got to shoot that. We got to shoot that little tag for it too. All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
In for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Dannerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them.
Almost says what?
What?
Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you. And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Hi, folks.
He was muted.
I was muted.
Which mutes me.
There you go. We were both muted. My kids try that on me a lot, actually. It does not work because I'm in person with them. Here's some good news. This is this would be a big win right now. There is a narrow margin in the House that the House has. It increases the power of voting blocks. We can add a very, very strong progressive to the folks that we have in the House now. Good. Going to happen one at a time, folks. But each time it gets a little bit bigger, and it's helpful. And here it is. Here is Nina Turner. She is announcing her candidacy for Ohio's 11th district. This is the one where Fudge is leaving to head into the to HUD in the Biden administration. Marcia Fudge. Here it is. Nina Turner's announcement.
I am a daughter of Cleveland. I was raised in this community by parents who worked very hard. My mother was a nurse's aide, my father a truck driver. I can relate to people who live in the 11th congressional district from all walks of life. I am you. As a Cleveland City Councilwoman, I worked to secure housing for seniors. As an Ohio State Senator, I stood with working families and labor to maintain collective bargaining rights. I led the effort to create the Ohio Task Force on Community and Police Relations. I know that the struggle is real. I want to serve as your next Congresswoman because I believe that everyone deserves a good job, health care, and our children deserve to be educated from pre-K to college. I will go to Congress to help our community recover from the coronavirus, including helping small businesses and those who have been hardest hit. We are going to do great things together. Let's get to work. I am Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress.
There it is.
It's official.
It's official.
She registered maybe a week ago, and I think I tweeted, she's officially running, and then she waited a week, and I was like, okay, I hope she didn't just, secure her paperwork and then decide not to do it.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. Yeah, there we go.
It is a lot of work, but Nina Turner, come on. How exciting is that if she would be in Congress?
It's pretty exciting. I don't know anything about that district, really, so I don't have a sense of what her chances are there. I have no sense, but I would imagine, she's going to have access to resources that maybe local people won't necessarily. I mean, I don't know who's running against her. I imagine there's probably some corporate money that'll come in.
Well, there are 3 candidates officially now in the race, Chantel Brown and Jeff Johnson, and it's a Democratic district that's plus 30 points. So it's extremely safe. She could potentially be following the model. Obviously, now she has a national platform that Ilhan Omar or Ocasio-Cortez or Rashida Tlaib, they don't have or didn't have at the time. But basically, progressive candidates running in safe blue districts, that seems to be the way to go right now.
Without a doubt. And she's going to come in with a certain amount of name recognition that I don't have a sense of whether the other people do, but she certainly does have some name recognition. And
it's not like she's being planted there, from a national
not a carpet
party, right? Because she's served as an Ohio State senator before.
Right. So we shall see. I don't know if there'll be any polling on that, and I'm not sure when that election takes place. Do we know when the couple of months, I would imagine, but we will keep you updated as we go on that. Let's go to the IMs for a moment. Do we not have any yet? Wait, why am I offline? Bear with me, folks. What? Connect. There we go. All right, now I'm online. There, I should be. Now we can take some IMs. Here, we'll take a phone call in that case. Let's scroll. There we go. Calling from a 518 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 518.
This is Mark Splash from Brooklyn.
Okay, Mark from Brooklyn. Not necessary to give your full name, but Mark from Brooklyn. What's on your mind?
Splash isn't really my real name, so.
It would have been pretty cool for us, though.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah. Lots of puns.
Close. It's my nickname. So,
right.
Sam, I wanted to see what kind of conversation are you in the mood for?
Well, why don't you just go with what you want to go with, and if I don't like it, I'll hang up on you.
Whoa. Well, are you thinking more politics or take a break from politics?
I got to be honest with you. This is a political show, and I would say go with the politics. There's not generally much else I know about, so I probably would.
I love pop culture. If you want to ask me questions,
feel bad about myself if you start.
Oh no, it's just. Well, I've been working on a movie project, and I was going to consider offering you a cameo spot in it.
Well, okay. Well, now we're talking. Well, you now you could talk to my peeps about that. I will. You could send me an email, and I'll of course send you to Team Seder, and the managers and the agents will huddle, and the lawyers, and we'll examine the offer. And it shouldn't be too complicated.
But it's more of a passion project. Once you get the suits involved, But, you play as Sam Seder instead of Sam Seder.
Big stretch.
And it's a stretch, but, it's parody. So, but you'd still talk about politics. You'd just do it with Seder.
Right. Well, Mr. Splash, let me mull it over. Send the script over, and we will decide. So why don't we get to a politics question?
Did you intentionally do the pun with mull cider?
Oh, that was good. No, I didn't. That was no pun intended.
I'm
right.
just so smart.
Yes. Let me.
Nice. You got to put that in the script. So the political question is. I've always wanted to talk to like a real Democrat to see what they would say to this, but
okay.
It's about abortion because I come from a conservative family or whatever. Appears they're conservative. Didn't seem they used to be, but anyways, regards to abortion, I was wondering if there would be any benefit politically to have like a middle ground kind of, or olive branch, or I don't know what you'd call it, but pretty much that.
Tell me what middle ground your parents,
no, it's nothing about my parents.
Or your family. I'm saying,
they're completely what they would accept, probably nothing.
Exactly. Aside from putting aside the idea that I think that no, you shouldn't really trade away a woman's right to have sovereignty over her own body as a tenet. I'm just saying, strictly as a political matter, this was attempted. In fact, Hillary Clinton back in the early aughts was sort of leading this charge on some level, and she abandoned it, I think, because she found that also she was going to alienate the Democrats, but also that the fact is, with all due respect to your family, they're not just worried about abortion. They're worried about women having sex, period. And it doesn't stop at abortion. It is the idea.
I guess my idea was it's not like, I guess my idea was just that if you made it so like you get sex education after an abortion or something, or there was some sort of
they're not going to stop
like
there.
It's taken seriously.
It's not about appeasing them and getting some sort of end. It's exactly what Sam said. It's emotional, so you're not going to be able to find a middle ground there. It's an emotional
But that's
reaction.
what I think, like a lot of
having
people.
Sex.
But it's not just a question of an emotional reaction. There is a belief amongst a significant portion of the population that women should not be having sex except to procreate. They should not have any ability to inhibit the procreation. It is also because it is an assault on the traditional family, which is that the woman is chattel, essentially, of the husband. If you cannot reinstitute the legal relationship, you can do it basically de facto. Woman does not have the ability to go out and make money because she does not have the ability to determine whether she will be pregnant or not. And it's also, not God's plan for women to have sex for any other reason except to procreate. I mean, that's at the heart of all of this.
I know that's probably why that's what they think, yes. But I guess what I'm saying is I think that if you have abortions or whatever, perhaps there should be some sort of, looking into, so it's not used like McDonald's. It's not just drive through, get abortion, come back, drive through.
Okay.
I guess I'm saying like even the guy could get punished.
Well, wait a second. See, now listen, this is first off.
Punish is the wrong word.
No, actually punish is the right word. Because that is.
I guess I'm saying like some sort of.
What's wrong
sex
with
education?
Wait a second. What's wrong with, as a political matter, you're going to vote for who you're going to vote for. I don't know if you vote for Democrats as it is or not, but I think punish is the right answer because again, you're not allowed, according to this fundamentalism, to engage in sex unless it is to create a child. And if you do, you deserve to be punished. And so the flip side of that is it should not be easy for you to control your biological fate. So you shouldn't be able to get it like it's McDonald's. Now,
but it's also just a false notion. It's not treated like it's McDonald's. It's actually quite traumatic. I mean, it's traumatic for women.
Oh, I know.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's that traumatic, and it doesn't have to be.
It can be.
It certainly can be, but so can getting your appendix out. And so, I mean, the fact is, it is a medical procedure. It is a very safe medical procedure. It is done probably as often, if not more often, than getting your appendix out. And I
guess I'm just thinking of like a middle ground that like a
what middle ground is there? What wait a second? What middle ground is there between?
Slight amount of sex education. If you get two abortions, or something treated
you think
like
that people don't know how to have sex? What is it? What is it that you don't? What is it that you need to be educated about?
Well, I think a baby, maybe it's not a human. Maybe it's not a full-grown adult.
It's not a person. It's not a person.
It's not a person, no. That's what I'm saying.
It's a fetus.
You can't, I feel like you can't treat a thing like it ain't a thing. It is a thing. And I understand it's a little tyrannical for people to want to control your body.
To
have a reasonable amount of education enforced.
Do you eat meat?
If you were in that circumstance, just like anything, like an animal is abused, so that has some rights.
Do you eat meat?
Does that matter? I'm not debating.
Oh, you're not debating. Okay. Well, I'm just curious.
I'm just wondering if this is a political idea that I think could find a middle ground.
No.
Where it's like we treat it seriously.
We're universally no.
But we're not crazy fundamentals.
No. There is no political benefit for what you're talking about. None.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, that question's been raised before. There is no political benefit. I mean, there's just not. It's just there's none, because
it doesn't seem like more reasonable if your policy was like, yes, you can get abortions if it's a
Talk about reasonable policy, though. What is their end goal ultimately? What do they want people to do?
Wait a second. So you tell me, okay, you're asking me if there is any political benefit. My answer to you is no. And you say, but wait, maybe there is. Who is the voter? Hold on. Who is the voter? Describe to me the voter who's out there going like, well, the Democrats seem a little more reasonable about allowing abortions. I was against abortion, but because they're going to make the woman and the man who impregnated the woman, because they're going to make them take a sex ed course, which incidentally, I'm probably statistically also against, since I'm against abortion. But since they're going to take a sex ed course, I'm now in support of Democrats. Who is that person? Like, have you ever met
someone who's not fully fundamental, but also believes in God,
Who?
I don't know. I believe in God, but I'm not crazy fundamental, believe everything the Bible says.
Do you need
blah,
that?
Blah, blah.
Let me ask you a question. Do you vote for Democrats now?
You want me to expose that to the entire world? And what if, I don't know. I'm not going to discuss that publicly.
Okay. Well, my point is
directly
that,
online or something. I will tell you.
All right.
For
Listen.
Sure.
All right. Let me ask you this: would it change your behavior in terms of who you vote for if that was the difference?
It would make me feel a little less bad, maybe. If I thought that.
But would it change your behavior? Because voting is a behavior. Would it change your behavior?
Maybe.
Okay, well, if
it's
you're
the one
unsure,
thing that I can't argue my parents with. Everything else seems like, okay, I don't, that's crazy.
Do you think it would change your parents'
behavior?
behavior?
No.
Do you think it would change your parents' behavior?
No.
All right, appreciate the call. I mean, I think you've answered your own question. It's not going to, as a political matter, it doesn't change. It doesn't change people's attitude towards it. And I think, like, listen, you were raised in a fundamentalist household. You have been taught that it is a sin for women to have the ability to determine whether they have a child. And that is a hard thing, I think, to shake. Because you have been grown up with that sort of fundamentalist worldview, and it is a very hard thing to shake. I mean, because it's literally fundamentalist.
But there's just no one like these conversations. I mean, this guy has no idea what women feel like at the doctor's office. Like that, that's so much of what centers around this topic about abortion. The healthcare choices that women have to make to not get pregnant are really difficult, and they involve money and time and often tough side effects. I've experienced this with my contraceptive choices. It's not something we take lightly. And if a woman gets pregnant by accident, they have a right to make that decision because you're not making the decision when you have sex with them, and you don't have to make those choices about your own body, and it affects your body. You're taking hormones. You have an IUD, which is extremely painful to insert. And then sometimes there's issues there and, doctor's visits. And I have all the resources to deal with these issues. There are a lot of women that don't have the resources. So it's just this ignorant, theoretical conversation about women's bodies when there's no understanding of what women deal with in terms of all of these complex issues. Abortion is always a last resort for women. They don't want to go there first, but oftentimes women don't have access to these extremely complex and expensive contraceptive options. So
yeah. The ask there was for every woman who gets an abortion to go through some sort of state-mandated brainwashing campaign to basically make his conversations with his parents a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's how can you make this more palatable for me as, a guy who's uncomfortable with this situation as opposed to someone who's actually implicated in the matter.
It's about the way it's like It's about the woman who has to deal with it and her individual choice about her health. Like, I don't really care about making him feel good about it. And by the way, this isn't a voting issue that currently affects things. Like, yes, it's one of the issues that evangelicals vote on, but they vote Republican no matter what. So I'm not interested in catering to these people. And also, politics is about beating back really old school ideas like this. A majority of the country believes abortion is a right. Done with the conversation. You don't need to tweak around the edges so he and his parents personally feel better.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 717 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. This is Harry from Pennsylvania.
Harry from Pennsylvania. What's on your mind?
That's right. So I'm just wondering. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, it felt to me like you were banging the drum pretty hard to get on a Joe Rogan show. I remember a lot of the clips you titled were very nice to him. And it just seems to me, have you given up on that dream at this point?
Well, I will say this. I did email him a couple of years ago, and when I was going out to California a little more often and asked to come on a show. To be honest with you, I don't title the clips. So I certainly wasn't titling the clips as a way of being more friendly with him. It's a little bit less relevant to me, frankly, because since that time, people like Kalinske have been on, and Pacman have been on, and Bernie Sanders have been on. And I feel like, he also, I think, is a little bit more circumspect sometimes with his politics. But I mean, there are progressives who are getting on there. At the time that I was most interested in getting on, there wasn't any. And so, it's not really as important to me. Would I go on if he invited me? Of course. I try and go on every show that invites me. I mean, it takes me usually a long time, but yeah.
But Sam, it's got to hurt a little bit to know that softball means nothing after all, right?
That's funny. Yes. Well, the reality is that Rogan and I used to play softball. Now, part of that
together or just in general?
No, we played softball. I mean, comedians, the bunch of Boston comedians would play softball back in the day. And
what was your impression of him?
Well, I think part of the reason why he may not have me on is because I've seen him throw.
No way.
Interesting. Not athletic.
Well, no, he's athletic, but not when it comes to throwing a song.
Okay. All right. Wow. Shots fired.
I'm happy, to be proven wrong on that, but that is my specific recollection because Rogan, I
would have thought he'd be good.
He's a man's man, yeah.
He comes off as, like you say, as a man's man. And I'm not saying that you're not a man's man. Like, I don't know. I don't generally use that term actually, but I got to say, like, I wasn't impressed with his softball skills. So
he should be canceled.
I mean, I'm not, everybody has their own weaknesses and strengths. And so that's that.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Do you guys,
is that what you wanted? Is that what you wanted? You want to try to goad me into,
Well, I mean, Sam, it sounds like based on how much you were criticizing, you've given up all chance. You're burning that bridge pretty thoroughly, it seems like.
I don't think he's probably that upset about it. I would imagine that, like, he's had a tremendous amount of success in his life since that time.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You're implying he's not a man's man, Sam. You're saying he's not a man's man after all.
I'm not saying that.
I think he's saying he's not.
However, if ability to throw a softball, and I don't believe that his ability to throw a baseball would be significantly different. If that is a measure, then, I'm not going to, people can come to their own conclusion, but, you know who else can't throw us? You know who else? You know who else, like, is laugh out loud watching when them throwing? And this is not as surprising.
Who? You?
David Cross.
Oh, that's not as surprising.
I mean, look,
I want to see Cross on second base.
I mean,
Do men's softball leagues? This is my question. Like,
appreciate the phone call.
Do you underhand pitch?
Yeah,
like
of course.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate the call.
I don't know. That's how
I play. I did not play this year, obviously, because it was closed down over the season, and then I had a knee issue. But I play. It's more of like a pickup league, but they take it. These guys take it pretty seriously. They've been had this game for 25 years, 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
They do stats, but yeah, no. Rogan and not necessarily. Cross is pretty bad. Cross. He likes playing softball too. He's just, and he could throw. I mean, he could throw the ball. It's just that some people look like they're baseball players when they throw a ball, and some people look like they're not baseball players.
There's a German word for like the feeling you have when you watch someone try and throw a baseball or softball. And
Schadenfreude?
No, not it. Is that it? No, that's not it.
Just like shame, basically.
Oh, well, I mean, I thought it might have been Sam taking pleasure in watching Cross throw the baseball poorly, but
let's go to the IMs, shall we? Rick from Florida, if Democratic operatives aren't doing serious work infiltrating Stop the Steal rallies and running targeted social media campaigns to get disaffected Georgia Republicans to stay home, they are doing the party a huge disservice. I mean, I would agree in that respect. Emma Bigwig Land.
All right.
Hi, Sam and crew. Years ago, you mentioned a conservative parenting book that said fathers should take their sons into the shower to compare penis size and establish dominance. What is the name of that book? Oh, I have it right here. No, it is. It was from. He was from the AFA. What was his name? It's I read that. It's in Colorado. It's a Colorado outfit, and
I don't know.
Shoot, he's not as big of a deal as he was during the aughts. I will remember the name, but yes, it. I can't remember that guy's name, but Dobson. Thank you, Militant Apathy. It's Reverend Dobson. Yeah, you can find it. It's a parenting book that Dobson put out. Magnus Mlachlan, I just bagged you 2 more YouTube subscriptions. Good job. Sam Seder, bra salesman. Can't wait for Jimmy Dore to call Nina Turner a sellout. Yes, it's really just a matter of time. Jeremy Mash. Hey, Sam, hoping this went through. Just went to emphasize how poorly the People's Party is being run at the very top. I don't understand the idea of that party, to be honest with you. But Moon in the Lake. If you want to change, you have to change who's in Congress. This means you have to support progressives in the primary. If you want your state party to not get in the way of progressive challenges to blue dog incumbents, then you, Majority Reports and member, need to get involved in your state party in odd-numbered years. That's when regular people can become state central committee members. Indeed. Remember last time you went to McDonald's and you had to take off from work and you had to go through the group of people yelling at you that you're going to hell? There's actually no middle ground with extremists. That actually made me laugh. I also doubt the sincerity of people that make noise over fertilized cell when living, breathing kids are in cages because their parents tried to legally enter the U.S. as refugees. Teresa, with all these Republicans wanting to destroy the GOP, do you see a future surge in the Libertarian Party and then becoming viable third party? I give this like 3 months and then it all is just, they're all Republicans again.
Yeah.
Tom Hauptman, Emma screaming content made me realize Sam just hired her to be a foreman in the satanic content mills of Brooklyn.
Absolutely. That's my calling.
Chris from Taiwan, apparently Nina Turner represented a full half of the people in Ohio's 11th district when she was still a state senator. Oh, that's good.
Wow.
Yeah, she's Biden really doing her a solid with this appointment. But he is pissing off like Hoyer and Pelosi with these. I mean, now what is he? He's floating New Mexico Congresswoman, I'm blanking on it. Deb Haaland.
Yes.
The majority's already pretty slim, dude. Like,
yep.
Why not just pick someone else for these positions?
Crass rebuttal. A thought about stimulus. Most small business. I want Deb Haaland in that position, though. Most small business owners I know all need the same thing. Customers with money to spend, which in turn would boost sales tax, helping cities and states. Why has no one framed it this way? The idea that they have been able to frame this as bailing out blue states is just absurd. Just absurd.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, looking forward. Trump crime family has nothing to worry about coming out of Congress. Benghazi out. No kidding. Shelby from Phoenix, Ohio, Secretary of State website says the special election primaries in May with the general election in August. The abortion guy is so ignorant and offensive. Women do not treat abortion like they're ordering fast food. It's a medical procedure. Nobody wants to undergo a medical procedure just for fun. Maybe that guy needs education. Just quit trying to legislate women's bodies. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend in college who, like had a religious upbringing and had to undergo it. And it was like a traumatic semester long thing with her. I mean, like it was really, really hard. And I just don't like it, being told by a man what it's like to undergo that. It's different for everybody. Some people can handle it better, but in many ways it is very traumatic and no one takes it lightly.
That guy should follow Ronald Reagan, his path. Reagan left Mormonism, I think, has similar sort of perspective on, well, not that guy, but would have a better perspective than that guy had on that sort of upbringing.
Teacher Jan, if I get a snow day tomorrow, I'm calling in live instead of dropping an IM and listening to the show at the end of the day, unless I'm shoveling, that is. Fairchild, how about a reality show following Sam? How about making of the Majority Report? Shout out to Matt. Left Reckoning, can you bring David on MR? He could do a gem segment. A gem segment?
Maybe someday.
Attorney Andrew, after hearing the tape of Biden scolding civil rights leaders for extremely mild criticism, I anticipate that by this time next year, Biden will have one of the lowest approval ratings in recent memory. Recall that during the primary, when he was out front actually talking to people and reporters, his popularity collapsed. I think there could be a real problem. And particularly, there was reporting the other day that he's convinced that he had said, 6 months, the Republicans are going to come around. Trust me on this. And, I may end up eating my words, which also leads me to believe that he's not going to do any of these executive actions in the first 6 months.
Nope.
And it's going to be a crap show. And it's going to be devastating midterm election. Now, who knows? Maybe something will change. Maybe he's saying that because he thinks it'll help Georgia. I don't know. I doubt it. But I think he's just basically telling us. I think it's a real problem.
It's amazing to have this bad of political instincts after being in Washington for this long. I mean, seeing how, Trump is now sending out those $200 Medicaid things.
Yeah.
As he leaves office, I'm sure his name will be on it too.
Of course. Slam Sleater. The subtitle for Obama's memoir should have been The Things I Do for the Bigger Game Plan. Evan from New Jersey, as a Boston guy, I'm sure you can appreciate the Boston Celtics players coming out against facial recognition regulation and it being a racial justice issue covered on the show numerous times before, of course. I didn't hear about that, about the Celts, but that's great. Disco Stew, I'm already starting to notice liberals heading out to brunch now that Biden's win is secure. What can we do to keep these folks engaged? Very difficult. Chardonnay Socialist, I'm also working on a screenplay. That would be perfect for you, Sam. It's entitled Cedar House Rules. My only personal experience with Joe Rogan allows me to say unequivocally that he's a perfectly reasonable person with whom to smoke a joint in a parking lot. Shlomo Schmeckelstein, doesn't the Fed have authority to support distressed local state governments without congressional mandate? It has the ability to provide them low-cost loans.
So hopefully, not Yellen. Damn it, I'm already forgetting.
Yellen. Oh, she's Treasury Secretary.
Right. No, has he appointed a Fed chair yet? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I was listening to MMT podcast, and they mentioned sections 13 and 14, I believe, the Federal Reserve Act, providing that authority to the Fed. I believe so. Prairie Fire Kowalski from Nebraska. Hello, Sam and fellow proletariats. Sam, I know you can get your 1 million subscribers before year end out. You just need to have a sub-series on carpentry. Editing videos is more difficult than I thought. It'll be a good skill to have in the long run once people realize you don't need farmers and you just get food at the supermarket and I'm out of a job. Lastly, in some very good news, my sister-in-law got the first dose of the COVID vaccine today. Being a healthcare worker, this is very reassuring considering the hospital's been at max capacity since the meatpacking plant outbreak back in March. Wow. Our healthcare workers deserve a massive amount of respect and gratitude and pay, having to go through the pandemic and then the psychological trauma of half the country denying there was a pandemic. Indeed. May you all have a very Merry Christmas. The war is still on, but just remember Jesus was a socialist and taught humanist values. Peace. Okay, Betsy DeVos. Bro, I'm going to want to smoke Keef blunts all day on Christmas. Want to cry? Watch Last Christmas. Left is best.
Last Christmas with Amelia Clark.
Hegemony, cricket. Roe v. Wade was the middle ground, and then Planned Parenthood v. Casey was another middle ground.
Good point.
Third way. We had a middle ground called partial birth abortion, but the conservatives seem to hate it. Joyce from PA. This guy with the BS abortion, F off. How about the men who refuse to wear condoms? Carl from the Geest. Can we get some color education to prevent people from treating the show like McDonald's? Or even better, can we punish sexists by spraying them with a hose? Just trying to find some middle ground here. Ice Team Fur. Women do not need to justify abortions in any way to anyone. Yes, that is my feeling on it. Any more than you need to justify like any other medical procedure. Mars in Chicago. I think Emma might know more about it if it's an emotional experience than Sam in the abortion debate. You should have let her express her views in that call. I mean, I feel like I did. I do.
No, he did. I mean, I have not had an abortion, but I know people who have, and I know what it's like just to have experienced women's health care. Like, it's already pain in the ass. It sucks. And so abortion is part of that.
I know several people quite well who have had abortions and have been involved in the process. And so, I mean, I don't have direct experience, obviously, but I certainly have been very close to that experience. So I talk about a lot of things that I have not experienced firsthand.
Yeah, I think that's part of our job.
10 law gnomes. When is it too soon to talk about using Defense Production Act to make generics of the vaccine instead of profit cap, regardless of insurance coverage? It's not too soon to do that. There is a report out today that that the U.S. government is negotiating with Pfizer to figure out how to up their capacity.
Yeah, he's got to, cover up for their
Whoops, we made a mistake.
Mistakes.
What are you going to do? I don't know what's going on in Canada, but let's tune in. Now, Canada, my understanding, I think they have already begun, or that at the very least they've ordered the Pfizer vaccine, and they've ordered enough for almost their entire country. I don't know if they have started. I know they started in England December 8th. I don't know when they start in Canada. Has anybody heard about that? But here is the Ontario health ministers apparently not doing everything they can to gain the confidence of their people.
I don't know why I bring all these papers. I never look at them.
Oh, when you're giving numbers, I do. I go, oh. I said that. Did you really say that?
I just say whatever they write down for me.
That's why you're guessing.
Whoops. Hot mic, ladies and gentlemen, in Ontario. But let's shoot over to Alberta, where this Albertan Canadian health official not doing so well with the masks. Oh, yeah. Now you want to put that. You want to. That's why I'm going to be wearing contact lenses, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. There it is. Yeah. And
it's like I thought it was a blindfold
over the glasses. Yep.
Yeah. Demonstrating great form. But I do love both of these screw ups by public health officials in Canada. They're just so predictably wholesome.
Exactly.
I know. Meanwhile, we have,
very Canadian, as opposed to in America, where it's like, what? We don't have a pandemic. What are you talking about?
Or like, what's the angle?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. The Trump administration saying, yeah, we don't need these Pfizer vaccines. We'll just take a few of them. Just a few.
Canada started vaccinating in some provinces yesterday.
I do feel for those hot mic health ministers, though, because they're busy doing other things. I'm sure they just read what's in front of them. I don't think that should undercut your confidence in what they have to say.
No, I don't think so, because they've obviously been prepared by
Doug Ford's administration.
They've been I mean, in this country, like anything put on that desk could have well been just prepared by Jared Kushner's friend's frat buddy, who just got hired by the administration, and in a key position.
Yeah.
Political appointee, and just putting out, so, but I think, Canada, broadly speaking, regardless of whatever is on the left or on the right, broadly speaking, believes in government as something that should actually function for the benefit of people.
And they believe in healthcare as a right. So Canada,
right and left in Canada.
Yeah. Much like in the UK, where even the Conservatives, they've flirted with touching their universal healthcare system, but even Conservatives in Canada and in the UK, they don't go far enough. As far as in the US, we even have politicians on the ostensibly left party that say healthcare shouldn't be universal. So,
or more importantly, shouldn't be a right. I mean, the universality gets a little slippery, because when you say universal, it's like, well, just because you decide you don't want to deploy your finances, you'd rather have a car as opposed to, let's say, health insurance or something.
I was attempting to be universal in my language when talking about healthcare, between the countries. But yes, point taken.
We have a late breaking of the, is it two-faced or two-hatted? Kayleigh McEnany. She is, we can't tell. She was in the White House press room, so you would imagine her to be White House Kayleigh or Kayleigh Adminany, but instead
it's okay.
Kayleigh Adminany
and Kayleigh
McEnany. And but here she is, it's both.
Together, these steps can play a significant role changing the course of the virus. Thank you to President Trump, and with that, I will take questions. Ben.
Kayleigh, now that the Electoral College has voted, does the president acknowledge that Joe Biden is the president-elect? Does he have any plans to invite him here to the White House?
The president is still involved in ongoing litigation related to the election. Yesterday's vote was one step in the constitutional process, so I will leave that to him and refer you to the campaign for more on that litigation.
What is his reaction to Leader McConnell today congratulating Joe Biden and calling him the president-elect?
I haven't gotten the president's reaction to that yet, but the president, again, is pursuing ongoing litigation, would refer you to the campaign for further.
What's the path forward, though, for litigation? If the votes have been certified, if the Electoral College has voted, there doesn't seem to be a legal recourse at this point.
The campaign would have more specifics for you on legal recourse, but yesterday was one step in the constitutional process leading up to the January 20th date in the Constitution. Steve.
Does the president plan to take the vaccine and really do it in a public way?
So there he is. She's today. She was Kayleigh Adminany.
Not Kayleigh
McEnany. Yes. So you'd have to ask the campaign spokesperson, and I'm not there right now.
And I haven't put on The Mask, starring Jim Carrey, so I haven't turned into the campaign version of myself.
When we got a letter from the podcast, there was a trademark troll, I guess it was, or a some type of copyright troll or something like that, had sent an email letter to me years ago because they had supposedly copyrighted podcasts.
Oh,
the idea of it, I can't remember exactly what it was. Or
I have copyrighted.
Not copyright, but
water.
What is it? What is
Trademarked?
that? Not trademark. What's the other?
Patent.
Patent.
Yes, they're patent troll, exactly. And they had patented the concept of podcasts, and so they wanted to have a meeting with me and my finance people. And I was going to do I was going to record the Skype call where it's like, hold on, let me check with finance right now, and just put on a different hat. And here I am. I'm just come up from and we never made that call, and the patent troll went away.
But yeah, I do love how strategic she is with who she decides to identify herself as in these press conferences. Like, it's almost like she has a fluid political identity. Like she's political fluid, like gender fluid.
The hilarious part about this is that supposedly she's saying you've got to, she's trying to create this bright delineation because she doesn't want to break the Hatch Act. But Donald Trump has been campaigning in the White House.
Yeah.
And
no one cares if you violate the Hatch Act. If anything has become clear in the Trump era, is that no one gives a crap about the Hatch Act, and you will never be held to account.
Now, I just want to. Things are going to get a little heavy right now.
Jesus.
It's one thing. Yeah. It's one thing for Kayleigh McEnany or Adminini or MAGA-nini or whatever name she's going by to go out there and say Donald Trump has won the presidency. It's Sebastian Gorka saying it. It doesn't. But Maria Bartiromo has a big story that she sort of just blows through right here. Because
a scoop.
Look at how offhand she tosses this out there. This is big news, ladies and gentlemen. Here is Maria Bartiromo from Fox Business.
An intel source telling me that President Trump did, in fact, win the election. He says that it is up to the Supreme Court to hear suits from other cases across the country to stop the clock. This follows the High Court's refusal to hear the lawsuit from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton challenging results in 4 swing states.
An intel source?
What kind of source is that?
Well, honestly,
the most trustworthy.
Sounds like a deep state source.
A deep state or a Q? Is she talking to Q?
Yeah.
She talking to Q?
Well, I am Q, so that would be hard. I haven't gotten a call from her yet.
I love how you have to go to an anonymous intel source to hear about how things are going to wind their way through the public courts.
Yeah. The intel source, well, maybe it's the same intel source that Sidney Powell was talking to, who said that he had a background in military, computer stuff, and then they found out that he hadn't taken the entry-level course or hadn't completed it.
Well, sometimes you can bypass the entry-level course.
Right, and then you become an analyst.
Intel source. It's
right?
Seb Gorka. Seb Gorka told her probably.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me. Like, is there no one working in management at Fox Business who could say, like, hey, wait a second, Maria, you really can't go on and say that there's an intel source that says that Donald Trump won the election. How would an intel source know? Like, is there a central repository where, like, the head of stealing American elections is sitting in an office and just like, listen, dude, I'm going to tell you something. You can't tell anybody, but
off record, but Trump actually
really won.
She was a well-respected stock exchange reporter for CNBC, and not that I respect.
I was going to say,
but like in the halls of TV journalism, she had some clout, right? And now she's basically saying, I spoke to Q and Trump won the election, just offhand. Like, you presumably knew what sourcing was back at your old job. You kind of had to have at least a semblance of journalistic ethics. And now she's just spouting off Sidney Powell's talking points.
Kid tested, Politburo approved, says, I think she meant an intel source, as in someone who works at Intel. As in Intel, the
Intel processors.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's impossible to determine because it's crazy.
Oh, meanwhile, Mitch McConnell has conceded. And again, Mitch McConnell cares about the Senate at this point. He is worried about Georgia. He is worried about the president's ongoing refusal to accept the election results. That is why he's very excited at the prospect that they're going to pass some form of COVID relief, and it's going to be as anemic as possible, but he will still be able to give David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler a talking point in their races, respective races in Georgia. However, McConnell's going to pay a price, and that is that Charlie Kirk is going to criticize him on his show.
The horror.
And so if Mitch McConnell wants to wake up on January 6th and be met with two of his Senate candidates all of a sudden trailing in Georgia, keep talking like this. Go out of your way to use the term congratulate. If he had to and was getting pressure, he could have at the very most, today I will recognize. I probably would have taken exception with that. But the term congratulations inherently means that you are applauding and recognizing an achievement of success. When do you use congratulations in your life? When people attain athletic accomplishments, when people get married, engaged.
Win an election.
You typically don't use the term congratulations when someone just stole a bank, stole money from a bank. You don't go to your friends or your family members that might be engaging in criminal activity.
Excuse me, pause it for 1 second.
Criminal opportunities.
Pause 1 second. We're just going to go back a little bit.
Congratulations on your crack sale.
But wait a second. I seem to like, when I look at like Goodfellas or something like that, the guys come in after their big heist.
Yeah.
It's like, congratulations.
The celebration scene in heist movies is actually pretty standard.
Yeah. But they would have had to steal an entire bank to meet Charlie's criteria. He misspoke, but I don't really care.
And I mean, if would you ever say, I acknowledge you stole a bank? That would be a weird thing to say, wouldn't it? Like, yeah. Heard you stole a bank. I acknowledge that you did that.
See you later.
And hope everything's good with the kids.
Well, I mean, acknowledging the results of the election, most Republicans aren't even doing that.
Right.
So you could still acknowledge.
He would still have problems with it. But he's just saying, let's go back here a little bit because Charlie's really, oh boy.
Athletic accomplishments, when people get married, engaged. You typically don't use the term congratulations when someone just stole a bank, stole money from a bank. You don't go to your friends or your family members that might be engaging in criminal activity and say, congratulations. It's typically not the right way to handle things.
I mean, I just don't think that any of what he said was true.
Yeah, almost as if Mitch McConnell doesn't look at this like he won or stole a bank, but that he won an election.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious answer, but that would get in the way of the conspiracy theorizing.
Yeah, that is weird. I personally appreciate Seb Gorka's take on this more because Seb Gorka is he's trying to rally the troops. He's not just like poo-pooing Mitch McConnell and saying, I don't like your word choice.
Yeah.
This is what a real
leader of the alt-right does.
Yes. He goes on, he talks with Sean Spicer, who has landed at Newsmax. So fortunately, Sean Spicer has a job, ladies and gentlemen. And here it is. Can you imagine?
I'm so happy he's employed. Good for him. After Dancing with the Stars.
It was tough. But here he is with Seb Gorka. And Seb Gorka, of course, is this is all part of like, remember we played the other day, what's his face is Dan Crenshaw's, video announcing that he was going to a Georgia rally. This is that same thing. They all love to just sort of feel like they're in some type of action movie because they're, they're not.
What this does echo to me, Seth, is these Georgia races are everything now. I mean, no matter what you think, if we don't win these things, if the Democrats control the Senate, as AOC has said, then we need to be aggressive in our picks. What that means, translated, is we need to get people that are going to protect the Democratic interests, they're going to protect the president, that are going to protect Hunter Biden. We need a Republican Senate that is going to grill this nominee for Attorney General to get on the record assurances about how they will handle the Hunter Biden scandal.
It's, it's like those 300 Spartans standing in the gap. That's exactly right. So look, whatever happens with the vote count, let's be clear, the president-elect wasn't decided yesterday. Those votes are sealed, sent to the joint session of Congress on January 6th. The incumbent vice president counts the votes, and then we declare the president-elect. Whatever happens on January the 20th, the Senate, we must hold the line. And anybody who tells you, oh, don't bother voting because we haven't fixed things in Georgia, you are making the good the enemy of the perfect, and we will lose. And whether it's packing the courts, whether it's amnesty for 30 million illegal aliens, whether it's stopping the border wall being built, whether it's lowering the age of voting to 16, on and on and on, the Senate will not be our bulwark against the radical party that is the Democrats today, Sean.
Wow. I am so sad to see Seb Gorka give up. Those 300 Spartans would have never given up on Donald Trump. And Seb Gorka to sit there and say, excuse me, making the good the enemy of the perfect. I'm sorry. This is making the horrible the enemy of the perfect.
I mean, the Spartans analogy is kind of apt because obviously they charged in and they died, but it was an act of bravery, right? And they don't want you to vote by mail and they don't want you to wear masks. So they essentially want you to die in the way that the Spartans did, like a hero.
I just think that the Spartans would never, if the Spartans knew what Kemp was up to and what Raffensperger were up to, right, the Spartans definitely would be like, we're not voting.
Yeah, don't legitimize.
Yeah. If you're a Spartan, you're going to pick up your spear for these crooks?
No way.
No way. Stay at home. Live to fight another day. That's what Gerard Butler would tell you in 300.
There you go. That's an actor.
Nope.
No?
Yeah.
I was guessing.
It is, yeah. But that's what that movie 300 is about. It's about those Spartans. And 13-year-old boys think it's the sickest thing ever. I don't think I ever saw that one. It is so not my thing. I was about to be meaner about it. It's a bad story, but it's so violent. And I remember watching it at 12 and, texting boys I liked, guess what I'm watching? Just to
impress
them. But I hated it secretly.
Well, why didn't you did you have to watch it or you could just pretend?
Yeah, but I'm thorough in my lies.
Right. So you weren't lying. You were just lying about enjoying it. I was lying
about my reaction, yeah.
Right. Dave Rubin has deep insight into to a lot of things.
I mean, it's Dave Rubin has deep insight.
His deep ideas, deep insight. Here is, are we clear? Here's the thing. I can't tell if he's doing a bit, but if he's doing a bit, it's not funny. And who's it for? And if he's not doing a bit, sweet Lord, man.
Well, he's a former comic.
He has got to get his bona fides on that. What do you call it?
Is Glenn that Beck the Network. Guy from Wolf of Wall Street?
I don't know. Let's see. Who's that guest? Do we know? Here's this is from Dave's clips, that Twitter feed. Here we go. Dave Rubin.
But I'll tell you one other thing about it, which was that Trump and Melania, they love each other. They are actually in love. Several times he referred to her as honey, and he put his hand across the table and put his hand on her when he was speaking to her. And he had me, he said, honey.
You could just tell her.
He said, honey, what do you think about this? And then he had me tell her what I had said about Bloomberg. And she actually thought it was interesting. But if they weren't in love, when he put his hand on her.
Body language is very
I don't know what it is. You see those videos of them publicly and she kind of pulls away. Or I don't know if they were playing some weird game for the media on that. And he's very soft to the way he speaks. He's humble, very thoughtful, deliberate. The guy could have literally done anything he wanted to do for the rest of his life. And I wish I had woken up to this earlier even than I did, because it wasn't until I never said I was supporting Trump really until September. He somehow is the last line between us and complete totalitarian lunacy. And yet unless I'm nuts, that's pretty much where we are. And Trump looks at me. He's sitting. He looks up and he goes, do I recognize you? I recognize you. And I said, oh, well, I'm on Tucker a lot. He goes, oh, that must be it. Then he turns to David, my husband. He goes, who are you? David goes, well, I'm his husband. He goes, husband? He goes, you know what your only problem is? Your problem is you guys are too handsome. You guys are just too handsome. That's your problem. Then he goes, Melania. He goes, honey, can you believe it? These guys are gay. Can you believe it? He goes,
wow. It's so heartwarming to have that kind of reaction to a gay person that you meet, to treat them with incredulity and shock. How beautiful. And yes, that's got to be Jordan Belfort. That's the Wolf of Wall Street douche.
It is.
Yeah. Who stole a bunch of money from people and then made it all back because Leo played him in the movie. Good movie. Critique on greed, but I think the guy's still, not that good of a person.
But there's Dave Rubin basically saying that, like, he knows they're in love because Trump kept touching her hand and referring to her as honey.
Yeah, I mean, that could be performative. It's pretty obvious that they're not and that she despises him. I don't know what he's watching, but... And why do you even care? Like, the whole point is that he married this woman and she married him for his money. And, yeah, this is the arrangement that they have. And that's, like, you were all into him being this celebrity rich guy. That's what celebrity rich guys do. We don't need to make it into some sort of Jane Austen novel.
I'm going to feel horrible for Dave Rubin if Melania and Trump end up getting divorced soon, really soon.
I know. Well,
I wonder how much he has to pay her to stick around for another month or two after January 20th.
He's like me when I watch like Gossip Girl or like Gilmore Girls as a kid growing up and would ship couples from that show, and he's just like, oh, I love the way they look at each other. He's just like way too emotionally invested in people he doesn't know.
He seems very excited about the whole thing, and he didn't kick us out after we told him that we were married. What would you bet? Maybe we should do a pool. When do we think that they're going to separate?
There was actually odds that Vegas put out before the election, or like, will Melania divorce Trump after he loses? But I feel like that was more clickbait. They need to have a time limit on the line.
Right. I mean, the question is like
over
3 months,
2.5 years.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I think it's going to be, if it happens, it's going to be like, 3 or 6 months. Like, there's definitely been like it's got to be 90 days or 180 days or something like that. There's definitely a contract.
Oh, 100%. She might have one of those prenups that she gets more money the longer she stays.
I mean, how much more money? At one point, you got to just, take your money.
I hope she made
a
business decision and got a rock solid prenuptial agreement.
My guess is that it was associated with them keeping. I think it fell apart when the whole thing about his affairs came out. I mean, it was always my theory.
She knew. I mean, that's
my theory was always like, if she could prove, then she would get paid or something to that effect. That's why they were so desperate to keep it quiet.
Well, definitely. I mean, there's got to be some sort of infidelity clause. But knowing Trump, his lawyers would have written it so it was a one-way infidelity thing. I got to look into that. I may have a source for something like that. Find a copy of their prenup, please. But that would shatter Dave Rubin's illusions of true love. So best not, maybe.
This is, where did this clip come from about the truck driver?
There's a Twitter account called Coping MAGA, and it just pulls clips of supporters of Donald Trump facing, the coming reality.
Well, let's look at this clip. It is not a clip of someone saying, what are the chances of Joe Biden winning with a quadrillion to 1 times 4 or something, but it is close.
Hey, God bless America, everybody. Guess what? It's a game changer. Trump's going to win the election. The alternative electoral voters have already voted for Trump in several states. Then it's going to go to Congress, and Mike Pence is going to preside over that, so we're going to win, baby. I just wanted you to hear it first from Jim in the truck right out here, driving across the fruited plain, in the name of Jesus Christ, the only name given among men under heaven, We must be saved. Hey, what happened? I'll tell you. I finally got some respect. What do you know? Yeah. Anyway, have a blessed day, man. That's the best news you're going to hear. This is a unprecedented, amazing thing. I just did a prayer for Trump, and look what happened. The next thing I know, I'm sending that to all my friends. I want you to look at the Next News Network. That's the first one coming out with it. It's amazing. All right, have a great day in Jesus' name, man. We win.
Is that a Joe Pesci impression?
No, that's a Rodney Dangerfield
Oh,
impression.
oh.
Do you even know who Rodney Dangerfield
Yes,
is?
I do.
All right.
I've been showing my age this whole episode. I gotta chill out.
Tell me about showing your age. I saw Rodney Dangerfield live. Oh, yeah. That was. How does he get that information before the news network does?
Because he prayed to God. He's got a direct line.
Bastard, man.
Did you hear that? I keep thinking about what Jared Yates Sexton said on the show last week about the belief in Trump as an article of faith for a lot of these people, and I just keep seeing it everywhere. And I thought that was a particularly good example of it.
Yeah, that is. It is going to be fascinating to see what happens with these people. I mean, I did back. Some of my undergraduate work was about Millenistic cults, where they pick a day that the world is going to end. And you intuitively you think like, oh, okay, what happened? So on June 17th, like they all gathered and they put their shoes away or they sold their property or whatever it was. And they got ready to and then it didn't happen. And you're intuitively.
You would think that would undercut their credibility.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. It actually, in some instances, makes them more fervent. It's just like, oh, we forgot to carry the 2. It's actually in 2 years, and then
what was the pastor's name?
Get more intense.
Who's now done 2 end of world predictions? I never remember these guys' names, but
they always have a reason. But that's the question. It's like that guy in the truck. What happens to that guy? Does he, when Trump doesn't win, and Mike Pence does not vote and change the electors and whatever it is? Does he get discouraged? Does he get more angry? Does he doesn't believe in God anymore? My guess is he just stays the same.
Yeah, of course. And that's, again, I return to this theme of the emotional connection to Trump and him being a vessel for something that's just their self-belief more than anything. And so they've kind of conflated their own emotions about their own existence with his public persona, and it's religious in that sense. And it's so ironic that Ben Shapiro and people on the right pretend the left is the emotional one, the people who are making decisions based on sentimentality and
emotionally that probably felt good for about 50 miles there. Probably genuinely felt like Trump was going to win.
Yeah,
this is the fastest trip I've made on this run.
He needs to buy a Red Bull.
Parscale and the Angry Inch. I like imagining 13-year-old Sam practicing Rodney Dangerfield impressions in front of the bathroom mirror. Good, wholesome fun. I will tell you something right now. I did exactly that.
Wow.
In fact, at my Hebrew school confirmation class, we had a talent show, and all I did was I had just memorized a ton of different Rodney Dangerfield jokes, and I did a bunch. And
did
at
you
one
try
point,
to pass them off as your own?
No. I did an impression of him, and I just did it that way. It didn't even occur to me. And it was the Hebrew school talent show. It wasn't like a huge.
Speak for yourself. It sounds amazing to me.
At one point, I didn't have a set list. I just kept coming up with the jokes that I had memorized of his. And one of them was, I'm sending my kid to college, and he's majoring in fucking off. And I said that as a 13 or 14-year-old boy on the stage in front of all the parents from the Hebrew school and the rabbis. And there was a chuckle and then an audible gasp from the. And this was at the time, where people didn't swear.
Yeah.
really, in that type of
Especially
situation.
maybe in front of rabbis, religious
Yeah,
leaders.
that rabbi and I had an issue for a long time after that. But not the only issue I had with people in authority. I know that's hard for people to believe. Calling from a 312 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 312. 312. Let's see. Maybe, I don't know, is it me? Calling from a 412 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. Is this me?
Yeah, you 412?
Yes, I am.
All right. What do you got?
Yeah, I've been listening to the show for the past few years. Really love you guys. Definitely miss Michael, and my condolences to all of you. But
Thank you.
Emma's definitely honoring his legacy. And so, yeah, I just wanted to call. I'm a fellow actor. About two things, but I'm a fellow actor and political junkie, and so I just wanted to mention, there's a Broadway shutdown right now, and it's been extended into the summer. And so there's a few organizations that are sort of helping out during this time for out-of-work actors, the Actors Fund, as well as beanartshero.org. And this is something that
Be an arts hero.
Yeah, beanartshero.org.
Okay.
Yeah. And it looks like Bean Arts Hero, but it's beanartshero.org. And the Actors Fund is another really great organization that is helping, actors out during this time. Sets, TV, film, commercial sets are starting to come back, and I've been on a few of those with, a lot of safety precautions. But, in terms of live theater and live performance, that's something that's definitely, we don't know when that's going to come back.
Right.
And it's just really ravaged the community, and, it brings in billions of dollars a year as an industry, as I'm, sure you all know. And it's just not something that, and a lot of, actors, as you know, are also, small business owners and things like that. So a lot of our relief and stimulus, hasn't come through. And, a lot of my friends, including myself, are just in a, really tough financial position.
I know a lot of people who obviously who work in production and whatnot. Now that's coming back on a little bit. Of course, it's harrowing in some respects.
Right.
But yes.
Well, and also, I was just going to say, and also because of, all the gig work that has dried up, due to, bartending and catering and, just brand ambassador stuff, all of that work has also dried up in live events. And so it's sort of a, double whammy for the art.
So it's Actors Fund. You can Google that, or beanartshero.org if you have some extra cash to help folks out at this time of year. And there's been, ongoing attempts to get legislation, at the very least, I know, for like live venues in terms of music, and some, I think, also in terms of for actors. I don't know. I mentioned SAG yesterday. I don't know what SAG-AFTRA is doing in terms of that, or AEA. But...
Yeah, well, and there's also this huge, fight between SAG and AEA. Well,
Yeah.
I'm equity, but I'm SAG eligible, so that's been an interesting, road to hoe in terms of being union and non-union. And, as a proud DSA member, I've definitely been, on the fight of, organizing. And there's a big fight between SAG and equity because there are some productions, now with Zoom productions, there's tension in between the two unions, and seeing, who has jurisdiction over that. I think it would be great if the two united to make a stronger labor, coalition. But, that's the details of that are pretty hairy. There's also other organizations that are dealing with the racial justice aspect and BLM, like Broadway Advocacy Coalition and Broadway for Racial Justice. Those are also two organizations that, are working on getting more equity and equality within the arts organizations. There's a huge reckoning going on, that's similar to, other industries. So I wanted to draw attention to that. But my other question and sort of topic I want to talk about, not to focus too much on the jagoff comedian, but, because it's not about him, of course, this is a good conversation that we need to have as leftists. But I think you're right in terms of, we need to think strategically and smartly in how we go about, picking these fights. And I think, first of all, this sort of fissure on the left is sort of, or the progressive left or socialist left, is sort of a gift, to the establishment, and we can't be divided. We have to act as a united front. But I do think we need to hold elected people accountable. I do think that we need to take them to task. But I guess I'm wondering is, and first of all, it's true that Mitch McConnell wanted to bring Medicare for all to a vote, right, in order to prove that it wouldn't pass.
Yeah,
in the Senate.
Yeah, in the Senate. And so if it was forced, it would, in your opinion, it would be, and it wouldn't pass, wouldn't that be bad for our cause as well? I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, well, my initial reaction was, it is a good idea to put pressure on these people to get something for their vote for Nancy Pelosi. And I think at the time I said, when I first heard of it, was like, Medicare for all vote, fine, but maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe it is committee chairs or something different, whatever it is. But the point is that, like, when you engage in this, the way that I would push upon like an AOC, not my district, or a Joe Manchin, not my senator, would be different, right? Because I see a difference between them as politicians. I see a difference, let's just, between Sherrod Brown and Joe Manchin, let's say. Even if they take, maybe sometimes they take same votes, a lot of the times they don't. I acknowledge there's a difference between them because I'm trying to build something, right? I'm trying to build more of a progressive force or whatever it is. I mean, if people, there are people who think that, like, look, there's no hope in any of these parties. Okay, fine. Don't engage in it. Go, I think that it's hugely important that we have outside pressure and we have, a building, and I think both can work concurrently. But if you think there's no hope with elected officials, then don't engage in it. I think I probably was a little bit charitable when Jimmy suggested this, only insofar as like thinking like, oh, he's doing this in good faith, and he wasn't, of course.
Right.
And also, to be honest with you, I think the guy has some deep-seated issues that might be enhanced by supplements that he takes. And I'm trying to be, generous with this. Like, look, he's attacking David Sirota. He's attacking, he's getting into a fight with this guy, Tim Black, and with Jacobin. Like, like, what is he building? Like, is it going to be him and his sidekick? Like,
exactly.
Like, what are you building here? Like, what, like, even in his own sort of agenda, pressure these people. Like, what is he building? He's not. That's the bottom line. He's not. He's just paying a mortgage and building some clout for himself, and getting more subscriptions on his YouTube channel. And like, it's just, and I think it's fueled by, by maybe, who knows what it's fueled by.
Well, I also just remember, Michael's saying, be ruthless with institutions and kind with people. Like, my evolution, I started out really outside, as sort of like, I came into leftist politics. My family was, sort of mainstream Democrat. I became an anarchist, and then I found socialism and, really came into the DSA, through Jamie and Michael talking about it, and AOC and all that. And there are limits to electoralism. We need to apply pressure inside and outside, and just eating each other is not the way we're going to do it. Is it a general strikes that we have to do? Like, further on down the line, do you think it's something? I've heard you say, like, you don't think that we're going to get Medicare for all, under Biden, but is there something further on down the line that they could electorally pressure them inside the squad as the squad builds? Or is it, do you think Medicare for all is something that we won't get, past, by, like, we're going to have to wait till the next one? Basically.
I don't think we're going to get Medicare from all from Joe Biden in a million years. We were not going to get that. No, I mean, there's just no way. I think, we're going to have to go through. I think if we have a chance of getting Medicare for all, we're probably 15 to 20 years out from that. And I think it's like, the upshot of an Obama administration was, the left is building. You get a distinction between when the Democrats have power, what they do and what they don't. That is a good thing for the left in terms of building that strength. But also you need to get I think in the next cycle, I think you're going to see, because very smartly, the squad and the progressive and the Justice Democrats, they're focusing on safe blue seats, right? So you're creating a ballast and an anchor, and then it's like anything else. It's like you build on a base.
Yeah, and part of what I think makes it even less likely under Biden is because it's almost like a temporary reprieve or relief for the senators or Congress members who would be inclined to be pressured to support Medicare for all, because the leader of the party is now Joe Biden, and he's been like, I'm going to veto it, or I don't support it.
Well,
so it allows people to just be like, I'm with the president. I'm with the president.
But this is just math too. The best case scenario, you're going to get 50 senators who are Democrats, and you're going to have a 51-50 on, sort of contentious votes.
And Joe Manchin will proudly not support it.
Oh, I mean, not just Joe Manchin.
Right.
There'll be others. And so, I mean, that's the reality. We're ways up now. But I do think that there are, you can build support, but you need to support leaders who are going to carry that torch. And if there's nobody in politics who you think is going to do that has any power whatsoever, and they have limited power, but they have some, then, I don't know, you're just a wrecker. And I mean, I think that's what Dora is doing. I don't know if he's doing that consciously, or it's just like,
it's more just like feeding a need for attention. And also,
I think it's really just somebody's acting.
Do you agree with Sirota in terms of, building it at the state level? Like, I know in New York, we have the DSA for the many. We have, many DSA candidates going to Albany. And is it something that maybe,
without a doubt, I mean, look, I don't know if a state, frankly, can support Medicare for all, but they can push it, and they can get closer, and they can start to create models that can be adopted. I mean, we have California and we have New York. I mean, that's why Cynthia Nixon's run was so huge in the state, I think, is because more than anything else, she drew attention to the IDC, which was basically subterranean. And that has created a massive change, right? Now we have like a veto-proof state lawmakers, and we're going to start seeing New York being a lot more aggressive. And
I would just encourage people to join DSA, join your local progressive organizations. We have the Tax the Rich campaign going on within DSA. I just think you're right. Like, we need to. It starts local, and then it goes national and global. So I really appreciate your time, and
thanks for the call.
Great.
Hang in there.
Appreciate it.
Great points.
Right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Calling from a 225 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Samantha from Louisiana.
Samantha from Louisiana. What's on your mind?
Hey. Well, two things. Number one, in the last time I called in, I forgot to tell you that the last time I watched you on the Damage Report, I totally cried. So.
Me?
I'm so sorry. Me. I'm sorry. Yes, I cried too. Obviously. But yeah, John surprised me with that really sweet gift.
Yeah, it was
good people over there at TYT.
Yeah. So I was calling to talk to y'all about Gary Chambers Jr. You probably remember him from a viral video of him handing that councilwoman from Baton Rouge her butt about renaming that school, and she was shopping online.
I think so. But okay, continue.
So anyway, he is doing an exploratory campaign to potentially run for, I believe his name is Kendrick Richmond. He is the House member of the 2nd District of Louisiana.
Okay. We got a problem with your phone.
He's gonna go.
Did you go on speakerphone?
Are you, Samantha? Did you go on speakerphone? Hello, Samantha. 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 Did you go on speakerphone?
Hello.
Did you go on speakerphone or something?
Hello.
Okay.
Dang it.
Samantha.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, I just wanted to get his name out there. I was going to see if y'all would have him on your show potentially, because he, like I said, he's going to be running for Louisiana 2nd, which, if anyone's familiar with Louisiana, and I know you guys have a lot of people that watch your show from here, the 2nd District of Louisiana covers Orleans Parish, Donaldsonville, which is the poorest part of Ascension Parish, and then East Baton Rouge Parish, which is under the shadow of a giant Exxon plant. So, the people that live in these fence-line communities around all of these chemical plants, they really deserve a representative that's going to be good for them as far as healthcare
When
goes.
is this? The primary is when? Is going to be in like the fall? Is that it? Or in
I don't know. It's probably going to be around whenever Nina Turner's would be, because he's also going to go.
This is Cedric Richmond's district, is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
So
you know
he's
what?
doing
I would do that. Well, we'll make a note and try and seek him out.
Yeah, and he's been on the damage report, so I'm sure John Idarola has all of that info.
All right. What I would never ask John Idarola.
Yeah, he's
All
dead
right.
to me.
But
so.
Samantha, appreciate the call.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Yes,
Bye-bye.
I remember that Gary Chambers guy now. Yeah. We Brendan, will you make a would you make a message for that or note? All right, final call of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Calling from a 240 area code, and then we will take some IMs and get out of here. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, guys. My name is Sammy. I called 2 years ago from Baghdad. First, I would like to send my condolences to you and the rest of my brothers and sisters. This is the majority report for the passing of Michael.
Thank you.
At the time when I know we talked about him a lot for the past few days, Jimmy Dore. But there's this aspect of Jimmy Dore that I would like to discuss as an Iraqi, and I have an extended family in Iraq and Syria.
Okay.
At the time, in 2016, I used to listen to him. I didn't know much about American politics. I didn't find your channel all the time. I've been a member since early 2017. I'm so glad about it.
Oh,
but
thank you. I appreciate it.
I didn't know much about American politics. I listened to him. He made sense to me at the time. But when he started talking about Syria, and I was like, this guy's lying. This guy doesn't know shit. He's lying. He's just defending the guy who's killing our kids.
Yeah.
Of course, after the pretense of being anti-war, it's like when Republicans say we're pro-life. I'm anti-war. I'm an anti-imperialist. You find these are nice slogans, fine. And there's an orbit of people who identify with the left online who use the same terminology to cover very poisonous.
Yeah.
Apology for the people who kill my friends and they kill our children, and they say, oh, these are staged. This psychopath showed pictures of kids from Syria, okay, killed with what chemical weapons, and he was like, and with a smirk on his face, and he was like, oh, it's staged. It's because this white helmet. It's a front for the CIA and everything, and that's disgusting. That's disgusting. And my sister Nomiki yesterday brought this up, and I thank her for it, because he did accept money from groups affiliated with Bashar al-Assad.
Yes,
and it's not a secret.
No, it's not a secret. I mean, look, you can come to the conclusion that the United States has no productive role to play in a or should never have a role to play in a conflict, and still recognize that you're dealing with horrible individuals or horrible forces or murderous individuals. Assad is a brutal dictator, and that does not necessarily mean that the United States should be getting involved in any fashion in removing it. But to deny the reality of that is nuts. It's nuts. And
yeah, I would understand if he says, I don't want our tax money or our soldiers here to go and die in the Middle East. Fine, that's fine by me. But to sit here and say that no, this guy is a good guy, he's fighting Al Qaeda, or he's been there's a conspiracy against him by the West because he's anti-imperialist and all that. That's BS.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind, and I know for a fact, I mean, this is public knowledge, that the neocons had it in their plan that after they would go to Iraq, they would go to Syria. That does not mean that Assad is a decent human being. I mean, that is but I mean, both these ideas can be held in your head. And I think
you're absolutely right.
Jimmy,
go ahead, Emma.
Well, but I think Jimmy, look, Jimmy doesn't do any work.
That's what I was about to say. So it's one, he was notorious, right? He doesn't read, but it's worse than that. It's clearly he is in cahoots with, or at least, receiving money from, or at this time at least, was receiving money from pro-Assad groups. Similarly, just by coincidence, similar groups tied to Tulsi Gabbard, the candidate he was claiming was most progressive. Yep. So, and they couch this corrupt commentary, the often tied into Islamophobia, at least in Tulsi Gabbard's instance, in anti-war messaging. And it's part of maybe what drew you to him initially was because that is actually a very principled position to take, that we need to be cutting down on our military occupations and our spending and stuff like that. But they manipulated that, and I think he broadly manipulates progressive rhetoric in order to be emotional and push the things that he doesn't even read about, and the team that he likes. So it co-ops actually important progressive instincts of his viewers and of people online in general in order to achieve his very specific ends.
There's hundreds of thousands of people online. If you dare to challenge this narrative, like you being an Arab, you say, no, that maybe this is not right, they'll call you CIA or a jihadi or whatever. Like there's overt racism from people in that orbit towards okay, guys, I vote with you. I vote for Bernie Sanders. I'm on your camp. But would you listen to me? I am from there. I wrote about local politics there. It's not what these people are conveying to you. It's no, you're a CIA, you're ISIS. It's disgusting. At this point, it's just overt racism. It's because of people like him.
It's overt racism, but I think it's also, to be honest with you, I think it's just there are very damaged people out there, or there are people. I mean, look, just for a moment, all right. Imagine that you did not have insight into Syria, right? I mean, you have one-to-one relationship with knowledge about what he's talking about. And that basically allowed you to see that maybe he's full of crap on other things. Most people don't have that. Most people who go and watch what he's doing, he puts it all into a very neat box, right? There's no nuance. You're either it's completely Manichean, and you're either evil or good. I mean, he's doing this even with people the idea that okay, it's not just Pelosi, it's AOC is also the enemy. It's not just AOC, it's David Sirota is the enemy. It's not just David Sirota. It's Tim Black is the enemy. It's everybody's the enemy except for him. Everybody's wrong except for him. And it provides a very sort of comfortable, snugly warm blanket for the people who want a very simple, easy, prepackaged, pre-digested answer, and he just snugly fits in behind a lot of these sort of like, you know, contrarians, professional contrarians. He doesn't do any of the work, and he just knows that if he tracks like what some of them are saying, then he's going to have some like online protection. That's basically the game.
Yeah, it's just sad. Finally, guys, I really appreciate what you're doing. I would like to have a guest recommendation from Syria, if you can have him on. He's like our Chomsky. Matt can look him up. His name is Yassin Al-Haj Saleh. If you can book him up, he'll be great for like the first hour of the show. If you can do it.
Yassin Assad
Al-Haj.
Okay.
Saleh. He's our Chomsky. He's published English, Arabic, and French.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Interesting.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I love your work.
Great call.
Thank you, guys. Love you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Love you.
All right, folks, that is the time for our phone call portion of the program. Got in 5 or 6 calls today. That's pretty good. Now we will go to the IM portion as we wind things down. Got a lot here. Run PMC. Abortions for all who want one. Indeed. Eunuch's Joker. Abortion is a private matter between a grown man and his elderly Republican parents. PCT Joe. In high school, I think I had similar beliefs as the abortion caller, and I met a woman that had decided she never wanted to have a baby, but is not allowed to medically make herself infertile. And it became clear that the abortion debate was at least partly about controlling women. Militant apathy. Dobson. Indeed. Kid tested, Paul, come back with your fish oil or on it, Seb. Beta move. Benny boy. Damn, Emma, that was such a great short speech on abortion.
Thank you.
The program today, with the topic of abortion, whatever happened to male bitch control? I think we mean birth control. I remember hearing a lot about it years ago, but nothing since. I haven't checked on that. Spocko, Sam, I'll buy the new merch to go with my white trucker's hat with the Air America Majority Report logo on it. Wow. I wore it to a comedy gig Janine Garofalo did in San Francisco last year. She said, Samuel will be very pleased you wore that. By the way, I sent brownies to you and Janine at Air America show back in 2004. Did you get them? Did you like them? You know, we may have got them. I was always very worried about eating food that we got at Air America. Now, Marin, on the other hand, he would eat everything and he would make a massive call for it. But I was always nervous. That was a scary time.
I just got a text I wanted to share with you. Anna Kasparian just texted me, tell Sam that I appreciate his honesty and I love the show.
Oh, it's very sweet of her.
Regarding, I think, the door stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, it is what it is.
But in general, I mean, yeah, it's... I'm glad she said that because it's validating. Because
I saw my favorite part was watching him go like it sounded like Anna got $20 million herself from whoever
he worked
and he got that money
too when we got that investment.
That dude is sitting atop a channel that was built by TYT. Yep. He coasted off it. If it wasn't for that, he would be nowhere. It was all that investment.
His channel was originally called TYT Comedy, and that's what, if you look it up on Social Blade, that's what it's still called.
Yes, of course.
Shills, though.
Left of the box. Abortion is traumatic for a woman who wanted to keep the baby but couldn't due to medical reasons. Love your show. Conversations like this are important to have. Judge Jude from Connecticut. That abortion is McDonald's notion isn't rare. I've been in an office since December filled with Trump fans, and although I've changed some of their minds on a lot of stuff, one coworker still thinks getting an abortion is like a moment of pride, rite of passage, and very flippant. I think I'll just get one affair because of a singular story from his sister-in-law. He has no idea the havoc it can raise in a woman's body. Doing my best, but it's no longer a wedge issue for him. I can't get that concept out of his head.
Where are they seeing this? Because it's not like there's conservative media, at least I'm not seeing it, where they're showing like women doing this and like
they're talking about it all the time.
They just talk about it. I want to see like the the Fox Nation special on it though.
Neutralist the best. The constant need to bend and scrape to what is most comfortable for WASP is going to be what ends society, I swear to God. Hopefully that kid keeps listening in. My argument to any conservative parent who are at least somewhat sympathetic to the kids' young people is to ask them if they honestly think country would be better off for their kids and grandkids 10, 20 years and if they actually dealing with the world as it is instead of how they wish it would be. Calling to Wentworth. Last Friday, you made a remark that lawyers being able to advertise was detrimental to the country. Can you expand on the statement? It was probably the best thing to happen to me. That's not exactly the case. Listen to the conversation. This is actually was on. I want to say
Alex Perrine on Friday.
No. It was with Fran Lebowitz.
Oh wow, we're going
in
deep.
2011,
Okay.
and I believe it was like October something, 10th or 11th, because it was we did an all-day show, and it happened to coincide when they were kicking people out of Occupy, and I just had this memory as a kid, and it really was not so much that it was bad on the country, but it was a time where a profession that I was raised to believe was like an avocation, that it was like literally like joining the priesthood, became highly commercialized. That's the only thing I can tell you about. Like, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case now that it's problematic, but it was a major shift. Look for that conversation. Train boy. Abortion is legal and free, but any doctor who performs a breast reduction surgery gets the death penalty. What are your and Emma's thoughts on this potential third way?
I really like that one.
Sweater Daddy Sam, regarding liberals going back to brunch, aren't these people we want to go back to sleep? Doesn't the fact that they want to go back to brunch mean that they weren't going to be helpful in the struggle anyways? I
Tell them to stay home in the primaries.
Yes, but that's about it. That's the problem. Epo, I'm Catholic, and I think there's solid criticism of the healthcare system from a social justice perspective, but claiming that your belief in God behooves you to support the legal prohibition of specific medical procedures, that approach is diabolical, in my opinion. If you believe in the sanctity of human life, you should recognize that a woman's reproductive health services need to be free, accessible, and safe. Simple as that. DK in Chicago. Emma, thank you for your passionate response for women's health. My wife had a traumatic experience with an IUD misplacement that not only caused a ton of physical, mental harm, but also caused us financial harm. Men usually don't understand this until they see it up close like I did, which is sad. Putting in any other unnecessary barrier between women and their health care isn't just politically infeasible, it's morally unconscionable.
I empathize with your wife. I've dealt with similar complications, so it's painful and tough. I'm so sorry. Yeah, and it's expensive. It's expensive. The whole thing around women's healthcare, like men talk, and not all men, but some men talking about, oh well, what if we do this to make it more palatable for people? Like the whole other half of the people that are dealing with it, it's hard. It's very hard. It's like It's like having medical issues that are just for one half of the population.
Nomi Key. This softball conversation is the hard-hitting and throwing analysis that all of us MR listeners crave daily. All right, 5 more of these. McMackerel. The German word is Fremdschämen, meaning feeling shame for someone else. Fremdschämen. Wyoming Ryan. The abortion caller would do well to read Democracy in Chains and Shadow Network for the insight on how religion can be used as a tool for the gullible to get legislation passed. Abshake, please discuss the video from Clips Dave where Ruben is fawning over Trump and Melania. We did. Yeah. Today's mixed-up youth. Sam, Rogan may be athletic, but not a lesbian for this softball conversation. Not quite sure I get it. Human, focus on the family, James Dobson. Exactly, 7 Shrek. Sam, how would you recommend someone get into labor organizing? Your latest guests have convinced me that the newest frontline for workers is the labor movement. And I want follow Jane McAlevey on Twitter, read her books, and then tweet at her and ask her. That's what I would do. But read her books first. Barrett Home. Sam, why won't you go on Destiny's stream? He's on every day with no IRL require. I'd happy to. Except for weekends, he's been going to Georgia to canvas. Good for him. Person, woman, best camera. Where are the beanies? I don't understand what that means. Bob Carr, Muddy, the mods want to officially welcome Emma.
Thank you. Thank you, mods.
Charge. Virgil Good, I think that's who it was. Beat the Reaper, my middle ground for chattel slavery. They can't be called our slaves. They're allowed to rent or pay outrageous mortgage fees, interest. Okay. All right, one with two more. Fragonard or Klugerpfeffen. Okay. Robbie Saltz. Can we get a version of the beanie with only the logo without the face graphic?
No.
Well, that's a good idea.
No, I'm sorry. I was just messing around.
Brendan, let's do that too. Maybe we get two versions. I don't know. And the final IM of the day. Ban Dongino. The liberals going out to brunch now are the ones who were so nervous they gave Biden the nomination in the first place, let them disengage, and the left has more leverage to primary candidates. Indeed. Let's welcome them back, though, for the general. See you tomorrow.
My typical strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in.